Good evening, everyone. I would like to call to order the meeting of the Board of Trustees. It is April 30th, and it is 6:02 p.m. Clerk Perillo, can you please confirm the presence of a quorum?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor Shepro?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Giuliano?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Hill?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Laux?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Ugrinsky?
Present.
Thank you. Attorney Moran and Treasurer Gaffgar are present as well, Mayor.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk Perillo, we have some announcements tonight.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Our first announcement is that the next meeting of the Board of Trustees will be a work session, and that will take place at 5:00 p.m. on the 14th of May. Second, there is a vacancy on the Power Plant Working Group. Residents can apply through our Make a Difference portal on the official village website, which is portjeff.com, or via email to the village clerk, which is spirillo@portjeff.com, spirillo@portjeff.com. Third, the rededication of the parkland at Caroline Avenue is scheduled for 11:00 a.m. this Saturday, the 3rd of May. And lastly, the stamped concrete walkway project at Rocket Ship Park is scheduled to begin early next week on either Monday or Tuesday.
Okay, that's a big project,
Yes.
and there will be signs posted around Rocket Ship Park letting people know. We'll get a schedule from the construction company to let us know what to expect,
Yes.
when to expect, and how long to expect.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now I'm going to ask our Suffolk County Police Department officer to come on up and our code enforcement supervisor, Kevin Cooper, to come on up. Officer DeKnip.
Okay.
Yes, if you can.
Maybe.
I don't know. You may. Mhm.
Thanks. Good evening. Officer DeKenna. I'm the 6th Precinct Community Liaison Officer. Just going to go over some statistics regarding the 911 calls that we received in the village for the past month. These date from March 26th through April 30th today, and we'll be comparing them to the same period from last year. So, total calls for service, we received 378 compared to 419 last year, so that's down. And breaking those down further into criminal incidents and non-criminal incidents, starting with criminal incidents, aggravated harassment. There was one reported case. Aggravated harassment could be unwanted contact through like text messaging, things like that, harassing phone calls, things of that nature. There was one reported incident, and that's down from 2 last year. Assaults, there were 0. Burglaries, there were 0. Criminal mischief, which is the destruction of property, could be either intentional, reckless. There was one report that was cleared by arrests, so that individual was arrested, and that happened to be a domestic incident, domestic in nature. The relationship between the victim and the suspect is a domestic relationship. That's down from 3 criminal mischiefs last year. Harassment, which could be like a slap, a kick, a shove, anything of that nature. We frequently deal with that also in domestic situations. There were 6 harassments compared to 6 last year. 3 of those are pending, which means they're still in investigation. It means charges were pressed, and those people will be arrested. 3 of them were ex-cleared, which just means that the victim chose not to press charges. They have the option to because it's a violation. So the victim has that option in this case. And 2 of those 6 cases were in fact domestic incidents. Larcenies, theft of property, 2 cases, same as 2 last year. Both are active. They're both being actively investigated. 0 menacing, 0 robberies, and that was a total of 23 criminal incidents, down from 28 last year. Non-criminal incidents, the police department also responds to calls for service that involve medical incidents, things of that nature. We respond with the fire department. Those are designated as aided cases. So there were 94 aided cases this past month compared to 106 last year. There were 0 overdoses. And then we had a total, there's several other categories as well, domestic incidents, things of that nature that, that didn't involve a crime, that didn't result in any arrests or anything like that. We had a total of 355 non-criminal incidents compared to 391 last year. Motor vehicle accidents. There were 19 reported motor vehicle accidents within the village compared to 20 last year, so down slightly there. And none of those accidents resulted in any fatalities or serious physical injuries. And then lastly, arrests. There were 6 total arrests that resulted in 6 charges, compared to 8 last year that resulted in 10 charges. Now, you can have multiple charges against one person. That's why there's obviously more charges in that case. There were more charges than there were arrests. I just wanted to take a moment also just to address, before I open the floor for questions. It's been brought to my attention that there's been some issues in the village with youths, specifically on bicycles, things of that nature. I'm not exactly sure if those are they like electric bikes and regular bikes, like a combination of both. Scooters as well. Riding in the roadway, causing traffic issues. While they're riding on the sidewalks, things like that. Stop signs. Okay. So we have dealt with issues like this in the past. Unfortunately, with the weather getting nicer, they definitely do increase, and these kids will be out of school soon. So we know that there's always an uptick with that, coinciding with that. The best thing that I can suggest is that anybody having these issues, you can call it in, because our response is the best thing for it. Arriving on scene, if there are any violations taking place, there's several different things that come into play. We have to observe them regardless to take action when it comes to either a vehicle and traffic violation. And it also depends on the person that's doing it. If they use, there's less that we can do with that. But we can also make an entry into our patrol check system, which I'm going to do actually when I get back to the office, just to annotate that this has been an ongoing issue, and we can get more marked units in the area, in between 911 calls, things like that. They can have a presence, and usually they're very responsive to that, these kids. So that's one way we can handle it, all right? Does anybody have any questions either regarding that issue or any other issues or the statistics that I presented?
Charles Brock, 307 Myrtle Avenue in Port Jefferson. I have a couple of issues regarding enforcement, or areas where I feel Suffolk PD needs to do some more enforcement.
Okay.
Traffic light on Myrtle Avenue and Belterre Road, specifically northbound. Vehicles run that red light continuously. And I mean, it's not even close, because I know there's a delay between the 2 lights, and the other light's already green.
Okay.
And it's always northbound on Belterre Road.
Northbound Belterre.
And that's an area, because of the layout, that you can do some enforcement.
Okay.
Another area, the yield sign westbound on North Country by Mather Hospital. Terrible place for enforcement, because there's no place you can situate yourself. But that yield sign is run continuously.
Okay.
Also, stop sign, High Street and Myrtle Avenue. It's particularly bad vehicles heading south on High Street, they don't even come close to stopping at the stop sign. And they turn down Myrtle, and for me coming out of my driveway, or my neighbor coming out of her driveway, there are numerous close calls.
Okay.
And also, the stop sign at Barnum and Main Street, particularly when the ferry traffic is coming out, nobody stops for that stop sign. They just go right through that stop sign to head south on Route 112 or Main Street.
And you said you noticed that issue, that's mostly when, with the ferry traffic, like when the ferry's offloading?
Yes.
Okay,
Primarily.
okay,
And I know the crossing guard has had some close calls there where she almost gets hit.
okay. Absolutely. No, thank you for bringing that to
And
our
I know
attention. We
your
can-
new commissioner is tough on traffic incidents.
Yes,
I attended your community meeting a month ago. Precinct commander brought that up, that the new commissioner
Mm-hmm.
is really tough on traffic violations.
yes, yeah, absolutely. And like I said, these are also things that we would annotate in that patrol check system, so we can direct the sector operators,
Right.
the officers that work those sectors. It's kind of like a point at, hey, we're getting community complaints from people at these areas, and they can direct their attention there.
Okay, thank you.
To do enforcement. No problem. Anyone have any other questions, or? And lastly, the 6th Precinct Community Meeting, which is a monthly meeting that we hold at the precinct, will be Tuesday, May 13th at 7 p.m. It's open to the public. Anybody that wants to attend can come. Right?
Thank you. The public is so shy when you're here to take their questions. I don't understand. They're very verbal when they're sitting behind their keyboard. So, okay, next. We have, Kevin, come on up, sorry. Mhm.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Hello, everybody. How are you? We had another busy month in code for April. We wrote, as of today, we're about at 450 parking tickets for the month. That's an increase of about 100 from last April. We participated in 2 events. The steeplechase event at the high school, we helped the school district with parking there. What we did was we blocked off one side of the street on Emerson, Hawthorne, and Longfellow, and it helped with traffic, people getting up and down their block, and it was also a safety thing so that if any emergency vehicles needed to get up and down those blocks, they could. And that worked out very well. The school district was happy with us, and we didn't have any problems or anything like that. We also did the Easter parade. It was a successful Easter parade, no issues with that. I think everybody was happy, and feedback from the Chamber of Commerce was good. As far as code complaints, code cases, we opened 15 for the month. As far as how they came in, we had 7 complaints came into our code phone. 1 was internal, 1 was self-initiated, 2 came in via our online complaint system, 1 was a pickup on our guys out in patrol, and 1 came in via email. They range from an illegal bedroom in a residence, 3 complaints of garbage, commercial, 2 commercial, and 1 residential. Of course, the e-bikes complaints came in the week that the kids were off. We tried to respond as quickly as we could and disperse the kids if they were still at the areas that we got the calls on. I did get a couple calls from residents where they had a close call of a person, juvenile, coming down the sidewalk, and almost hitting them. And we are keeping an eye out for anybody with the e-bikes on the sidewalk, either riding them or just parked in front of the pizza place or anything like that. We're asking them to move the e-bikes. So we are working on that. We had a disabled truck that we asked the fire department for some help. They were stuck in a driveway. It was a sloped driveway. They came down and they bottomed out in the rear. The FD came right out and helped us. They were blocking traffic in the sidewalk. I had 1 leaf blower complaint.
So Kevin, what street was that on? Was it a driveway or a roadway?
Bayview and Broadway.
Yeah. always. That's
Yeah.
a state, that is a state roadway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
okay.
yeah. One complaint of resident parked their car on the lawn, which is against village code. We had to move it right away. We did have 2 complaints of unknown persons driving in a car and shooting a BB gun out. Fortunately, nobody got hurt that I know of, but we are on that. The PD does know about that. We talked to one of the sectors, and they are aware. And as far as complaints that came in that we didn't open up cases on, anything from broken bottles in the roadway, motorcycles racing on Old Post. We assisted PD with traffic a couple times, FD with traffic a couple times, a sick raccoon. And we had a complaint of people removing trees without a permit, which was unfounded. I also, Saturday night, I worked late. I met with the owners of Burrito, Portside, and the brewery. And I would talk specifically about their occupancy numbers and the noise. So, and I told them that I will be watching the occupancy and the noise very carefully, and I will be doing checks and checking their occupancy. So, you know, I did talk to them. They knew their occupancy right off the top of their heads, so I said, if you know it, then you got to keep to it. Had a conversation with the brewery owner Saturday night. He had some music there, and I had him stop it. He was going to go to 10, but I told him 9:30. It's got to stop because it was too loud at the time, and he shut it down. He was cooperative. And I will keep on top of the noise and the occupancy in the on the late night hours on Friday and Saturday nights. So, and that's about it. If you have any questions.
So I have a quick question. The
Yeah.
brewery usually requests or files a permit application for live music. Have they done that this year yet?
Apparently, I think with the outdoor dining permits, they start May 1st, and the music is incorporated into the outdoor dining permits. From what I understand, I'm still trying to wrap my head on the process, but I will make sure that they, as of tomorrow, have their outdoor dining permit.
Okay, I think that the clerk can probably find a permit for the live music too somewhere. I think it's a different code.
He told me at Wednesday nights they have something every Wednesday night.
They do,
And then they
yeah.
do something in the fall for 3 nights, like the end of
Yeah.
the year.
And
so.
they've been issued permits, so I just want to make sure that they have applied for
Yeah.
it. Okay.
That's it.
Any questions for the
I just have a quick question. Rob Grimm, 18 Pine Hill Road. My question is, I just want to make sure I have this straight, is that if there is a problem with kids with bicycles on the road or whatever, or something like that, or there's someone shooting a BB gun in my yard, the yard next to me or something, do I still call code for that, or I have to call the police for that?
The e-bikes on the sidewalk, I would say call us. We'll come out, and if we have a problem with them. If we can't disperse them or they're giving us a problem, we'll ask the PD for backup. Something with a BB gun, I would call 911 for that.
911 for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, but the minor things, like you could come tell them, you know, please stop that, because kids are probably going to listen and go away.
Most of them have been good
Yeah.
so far, yeah.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah, I
Thank
haven't
you.
had problems with them. They've been kind of respectful, and they just, you know, I understand they're blocking traffic and they're doing wheelies and stuff, and the e-bikes are now turning into e-dirt bikes, and they're getting faster, but we're going to try to stay on top of it, my guys
Okay,
know.
thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Supervisor Cooper? All right, Thank
Thanks,
you.
man.
Okay, next up, we have a presentation of the proposed Port Jeff Union Free School District 2025-2026 budget, presented by Deputy Superintendent Leister. Welcome. So, ask Jeff, ask Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor Shepro, and trustees. We appreciate the opportunity to present our proposed budget for the upcoming school year to the village. We like to call this our budget roadshow, where we're able to present to local community groups and have another opportunity to discuss our budget. I do want to publicly thank the village for their support of the Steeple Fest that you heard Supervisor Cooper talk about earlier. They were certainly helpful for us, for the residents in that area, and the traffic associated with that event. But it is a great event honoring one of our deceased track coaches now, Rod Cawley. It was a great event, so thank you for your support of that. So we appreciate all of the attendees here to talk, and this was probably one of the more significant budgets that we've had to do in the school district, largely because, as you've seen, that's been reported, is that we do not have a final state aid budget right now. The governor's office has not yet made that final. You probably saw it in Newsday even today, talking about the proposed deal that is not yet done. Even though the governor is saying it's done, it's not yet done. We still don't have our final state aid numbers, so that's certainly a challenge. So what we are working off of right now in the budget that you will see tonight with Mr. Lester will share with you is what the governor's budget proposed for us for state aid. So that's the figure we're using right now, and hopefully we'll get those numbers sooner than later as we move through the budget cycle. This budget, as you'll see, also does take into account the proposed CVA settlements, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I know that's also on many people's minds as of late. And so I'll turn it over to Mr. Lester to talk more about the budget.
Well, thank you and good evening. So we're going to start off with some fiscal points of pride that we have at Port Jefferson. So our projected tax levy increase for the 25-26 school year will be 1.86%. Port Jefferson has one of the lowest tax rates in the town of Brookhaven. We are the third lowest. Fire Island has a 23% rate, and that's because they have 11 students. There's Riverhead with 184 and Port Jeff at 201. Our surrounding neighbors, Comswag is 290, Mount Sinai is 298, and Three Villages 314. Our budget-to-budget increase is 2.89, well below the Suffolk County inflation rate of 4.2. Currently, Port Jefferson has a positive fiscal stress score of 0. These are various fiscal stress factors that New York State puts together for each school district and then issues annually. We've had a score of 0 for the past several years. Right now, Port Jefferson has 0 in capital debt. Port Jefferson has received the last few audits with 0 findings in the last couple of years. And Port Jefferson, about a decade ago, has eliminated borrowing fees for its tax anticipation notes. And lastly, we continue to operate a cycle of modernizing our technology, equipment, and vehicle fleet to keep it up to date so that we're not having to replace it in an emergency situation. Now, we also have some academic and extracurricular points of pride, but being that I drive the fiscal bus, Ms. Matan drives this bus.
Thank you, Mr. Lester. So one of the things I never like to lose in these budget presentations is that what does your money buy for you? What is the education value of Port Jefferson? So some of the highlights, and I won't read every point on this slide. You have it in your presentation. You have it in your packets. So one of the ones we're really proud of right now is our Port Jefferson Middle School ranks 72nd in New York State and 14th on Long Island, 3rd in Suffolk County, according to U.S. News and World Report. The high school was recognized for its high ranking in U.S. News World Report's best high schools for STEM education, and STEM stands for science, technology, education, mathematics, engineering and mathematics, excuse me. We also have highly competitive science Olympiads teams who place up at the regionals and up at the states every single year. What we're really proud of is our graduation rates. And so for the 23-24 school year, our graduation rate was 98%. And the prior year before that, it was 100%. We were the only one on Long Island to have a 100% graduation rate, and we are extremely proud of that. What's really interesting about the graduation rate is that we have classes less than 100. So our students actually count for more than 1%. So you can imagine just one student actually drops our number from 100% down to 98%, because each student is even more than the value that they are. One of some of the other things that we've added over the years, again, I won't go through everything, is that we've actually added full-day pre-K, and that was a need from the community for several years now. We also know the value of identifying our students early enough to have a full-day program, and we have that now for the last 2 years. And we also added a breakfast program to our meal program. The population in Port Jefferson is changing. And so over the last several years, our demographics with free and reduced lunch, when Sean started probably about 16 years ago, free and reduced applications were only about 3%. We're currently up to 15% of our population requiring free or reduced meals. Now in the governor's budget, if everything goes through as proposed, there will be free meals for all. And one of the caveats about having free meals for all in the state-funded budget meals is that you have to have a breakfast program. So we are perfectly on target this year by adding the breakfast program. Now we're eligible for all of our students, if that goes through in the governor's budget, to have free meals for all next year. And that's a breakfast and a lunch. And we know the value of being fed and well satiated before learning. So that's really important to us. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. So to the numbers. Last year's budget was $48 million. The proposed budget for the 25-26 school year is $49.4 million. A budget increase of about $1.4 million, and as I mentioned, a 2.89%. Now the tax levy last year was $39.4 million, and for the final levy for 25-26 will be $40.6 million, an increase of about $750,000, and an overall levy increase of 1.86. So it's always important. We have two budgets that we have to operate. We have an expense budget and we have a revenue budget. Not only do we have to spend, we have to pay for it. So we always have this running metric to see where we're at. And up until this final budget, we were operating with a shortfall. So a lot of work went into this year's budget to balance both. So these are some of the assumptions that we work on. I'm not going to read them all, but just realize that with a 1.86% tax cap, it's hard to operate when all your big expenses are going up by more than that. So our medical insurance for the first time is only going up 1 to 2%. Normally that's a 10% increase. Our liability insurance was going up 4%. I've just been informed it's jumped to 13%. The teacher's retirement staying at a 10% level, which is good. Our utilities always vary. That's about 4%. And then we have the different ones. But I just wanted to point out that those are always above our tax cap. So it's difficult to make the numbers work each year. Coming down, we have the Child Victims Act settlement. For those of you who are not aware of it, it was a $16.5 million settlement. $11.4 million was paid for with a bond. That's a one-year bond anticipation note, and with $5.1 million of reserve. And for that one-year borrowing, it's a net interest expense of $370,000. What we do know, we have 3 staff retirements of 3 teachers. And then, as Mr. Rutan mentioned, we have some unknowns. We don't know what our final state aid number is. We don't know what our medical insurance increase will be come January. And as everyone here is aware, we're very concerned about the long-term future of LIPA, both the main plant and the Pica plant. And what is still unknown is what the final numbers will look like for our elementary school section staffing. So the Child Victims Act impact to the budget. As I mentioned, it's about $370,000. How does that impact our program? It will not. We pulled $400,000 out of reserves to cover that expense. We pulled that from rainy day funds to make sure that today's children didn't have to pay for a mistake or an unfortunate act that occurred 50 years ago. So committee recommendations. So throughout the budget process, the Facilities Committee and the Finance Committee meet monthly to discuss different items. The biggest item that we all discussed were capital projects. So we started with a list of about 15 projects, and we had to pare that down to what's most important. Normally, we categorize our capital projects in 3 different areas: health and safety, instructional areas, and infrastructure. And normally we try to allocate to each of those areas. But this year a decision was made after several meetings, it wasn't done in 10 minutes, to concentrate on some of our infrastructure. So here are the items that we decided upon. An electrical upgrade to the elementary school, $785,000. Our electric service goes back to 1965. As a result of increasing technology needs and increasing electrical needs, the panels in the grid just isn't there to support. We're constantly blowing breakers and fuses. And there's also a greater need these days for air conditioning based upon IEPs, 504 plans, and what we're going to have now is a state mandate for specific levels of cooling in classrooms. So in preparation of that, we realized we need this electrical upgrade. The second is $150,000 for phase 2 of lockdown technology. Lockdown technology is a combination of automatic locking doors, strobes, and panic buttons that enable, and a PA system that enables the district to communicate when there's a lockdown or lockout within the district. Using surplus funds from 2024-25, we started that process. This is to continue that process and move on to the next phase. And finally, operation and maintenance building repair. So we have a maintenance building over at Scraggy Fields that unfortunately the floor has sunk 6 to 12 inches in some areas. And as a result, the walls are starting to bow in. So this is a quick fix and a temporary fix to ensure the safety of that building until we have adequate funds available to replace it. Next, the capital reserve use. So just to remind everyone the way a capital reserve works, it takes a public vote to create a reserve, and it takes a public vote to use the funds that are in it. So this is the 2021 capital reserve that was voted upon that year. And the way it's funded is when we have year-end surpluses. So anytime there's an ask to use those funds from the public, it does not increase the taxes. Those funds have already been levied, they've been held in reserve, and they're brought forward. So there'll be a second proposition on your ballots. The first one is for the general fund budget. The second proposition will be to use the capital reserve for HVAC at the high school, phase 1. So that's the second and third floor. And speaking with the gentleman this evening, we talked about it. He said, I don't know if I'm a fan of the air conditioning. And I said, it's not just air conditioning. It's heating, ventilation, and cooling. Our pipes are from the 30s. We've spent between $165,000 and $200,000 on repairs on these steam pipes because they're crumbling. So this project isn't to just put air conditionings in. That's like a bonus part of it. It's to redo the piping and the unit ventilators that go in each room. There's only a small incremental cost to convert that unit ventilator from just fresh air, which is mandated by state regulations, to be able to provide fresh air and cool air. So this is a combined system that's in dire need of upgrade. As far as the second proposition goes, it's contingent upon the budget vote, meaning you can't vote no to the general fund budget and yes to the capital fund. The general fund has to pass, and the proposition has to pass for us to enable us to do the work. Staffing. Now, I will turn this over to Ms. Matan because, to be honest, my line of work is to tell the district how much the staffing costs. Her and Dr. Neidig analyze class size, student interest, and other things to determine what type of staffing we actually need.
Thank you. So what you see in front of you is the proposed budget and the staffing allocations for the upcoming school year. The process we take every year is very similar in this nature. We look at student enrollment. We also look at student interest. So what we're talking about there is what do the current students want to take next year? And of course, at our high school and middle school, there are less students perhaps that want to take certain things. So certain courses run, certain courses don't run. At the elementary program, we're looking primarily at enrollment. How many sections are needed for each grade level based on the students that are there? The staffing slide that you see right here maintains all staffing levels right now at the elementary school. It does not add anything additional. There have been some community members that have talked to the Board of Education about increasing that and adding a class size back to the elementary level. That is still under consideration with the Board of Education at this moment and will be discussed at their public meeting at the hearing. I can't speak for the board on that area. But it is something that they have absolutely heard the community on about looking at the class sizes at the elementary school in one particular grade level. I can tell you that. I will also tell you that 4.3 is not really exactly full bodies. Does not mean full staffing is reduced, not 4 full people. What that is portions of people. So let's just say an English class doesn't run. That means that might be one less class or one less portion of a person that's reduced. So for instance, a full teacher is a 1.0. They teach 5 classes. If I have a course load of now 4 classes, I'm now a 0.8. So that's how that person may be reduced. We also have several part-time people that may not be coming back. Those are annual appointments. They're not long-term probationary people. Those types of things are the reduction. So those little portions of people become that 4.3. But there are two 2 full staff members in there currently right now. And again, that's where we are right now. This is the same process we take every year. Of course, the Board of Education always has a little bit extra in their personnel budget. We wouldn't be smart budgeters if we didn't do that. Things happen with students. Students move in, students enroll, demographics change, ENL, special education, all of those things happen as the school year evolves. So the Board of Education always has a little bit of extra in that personnel budget to consider those changes, just like you would at home, saying, oh my gosh, if there's an emergency in my house, I better have some money in case something happens, right? Same thing for the Board of Education. So what they're doing right now is looking at all of those things and making decisions about, can we afford to put that money in certain areas? Because there are a lot of needs that arise as things happen. One of the other changes you'll see there is the psychologist. It looks like an increase of 1, but that is a budget neutral psychologist. So in the past, we actually had services for behavioral services that were contracted with local agencies. And we said, why are we contracting with this? You know, we should bring it in-house and have our own person, somebody who's available all the time. So it became a budget neutral add of a psychologist at our elementary school. So that's why the overall right now is a 3.3, a negative 3.3 in reduction. Our aides and our assistants are saying the same. Our clerical is saying the same. Our facility and supervisors are saying the same. So as always, the Board of Education and I will continue to monitor the enrollment, the sections, the class sizes, and we take a look at staffing. You'll probably see across the island, there was even an article this morning in Newsday about South Country and some of the other districts that are really experiencing some significant layoffs. Due to the health insurance costs that we were talking about earlier, we were fortunate in this cycle that ours did not go up the way South Country, 3 Village, and a couple of them in that consortium did. So definitely districts are struggling with staffing levels across the island.
Sure, and I'll just point out one more thing before we leave the staffing slide. The community votes on the total budget number. They're not voting on staffing levels, they're not voting on how many pencils we buy, and they're not voting on what uniforms we buy. They're voting on the total amount. So the board empowers the district office to make those decisions to move money from one area to another. So that's why we have that flexibility, and really nothing is ever written in stone except the bottom line number until school starts. And even then it's not final because things change throughout the year. That was the expense side. This is the revenue side on how we pay for everything. So our starting budget is $49.4 million. Our state aid right now is projected at just a little hair above $4 million. Then we come, and we hope that'll increase, but I don't see it increasing that much. If I had to estimate, we might see a $30,000 to $50,000 increase. Coming down to the other revenues, or the local revenues, it's just things that don't fit in that bucket or in the levy. So we have things such as interest income. That's money, you know, we make interest we make on the money in our bank like everyone else. That we have tuition. That's if other schools send students here to be educated in our special ed program. We have rentals. So we rent out the whole entire Spring Street building. And then we also, to BOCES. And then we also rent out several classrooms at the elementary to BOCES. And that's a twofold benefit. We're receiving the rent, and we also provide the teacher support for specials. Specials are things like gym, music, art, so, and then they reimburse us for those teachers' proportional wages. So we're receiving rent, and we're keeping our teachers employed and trying to keep them whole. We have our various pilots. Those are payments in lieu of taxes. That's where a business has received a tax deal from either Suffolk County or town of Brookhaven. I like to put down what everyone knew they used to be. So we have the shipyard, we have Cappy's, we have Overbay, and we have the Lobster House. And I heard there's been a complaint. The new Lobster House wants me to assure everyone that he's not getting an exemption. That's just where the old Lobster House used to be on Old Country Road. And I also put in there the dates that those agreements expire and that we expect them to go on the normal rolls. We have miscellaneous, which is primarily made of everything from field trips to lost book fines to lost uniforms. And then we have use of our reserves. So we'll be using $200,000 of our ERS retirement reserve, $300,000 from our compensated absence, $500,000 for our undesignated reserve, and that's to cover the CVA costs, and $50,000 from our workers' comp. So starting back at the top, $49.4 million, less the state aid of $4 million, less the local revenues of $4.9, we're left with a tax levy of $40.5 million, which is the 1.86% levy I mentioned earlier. This is just the budget by component, and it shows the kind of the shifts. There's really no shifts at all. It's just slight micro percentages of our admin component, our capital component, and yes, we are spending the majority of our budget, 80%, on the program component. This is just something where I break it out by by category. It's not a state thing, it's a Sean Lester thing, so that you can see where the different types of money is going. So salary and benefits are the two biggest drivers. It is for any district. And it's 76% of our budget. Guess what? Most districts, it's 75 to 80%. Transportation is always the next biggest one. We provide 100% transportation to students. We have our contractual. That's just where we enter in agreements with vendors to provide services. We have supplies. That's everything from your pencils to the paper towels to the wax for the floors. Interfund transfer, $1,065,000. That's transferred to other funds. $1 million of that's the capital budget. We have to record capital costs in a different fund. We have our debt service, so that's a combination of the $370,000 for the CVA 1 year interest, as well as the interest on our EPC contract. Testing and tuition, that's where we sometimes have to send some of our students to other districts if we don't have an appropriate program or we don't have enough students in our district to run that individual program. Our utilities speak for itself. Our liability insurance, that's things like boilers, board liability insurance, slip and fall insurance. Equipment, things like mowers, vehicles, otherwise textbooks, just that. Software, a growing cost, and then postage and other. So it all adds up, but if you look at these categories, and I had to strip out what's really falls under a kind of a discretion veil, I'd say 4 to 5%. The rest of the stuff is either mandated by bargaining unit contract, New York State regulation, or best practice. What's best practice? I don't have to have boiler insurance, but if that boiler blows up, I'd be in trouble if I didn't have it. So that's what I would call a best practice. This is a financial model that I've been using to estimate the impact, the tax impact of the LIPA ramp down. So next year we'll be entering into year 8 of the ramp down, and 8 and 9 are the steepest steps of that ramp down. So as a result, while the tax levy is only 1.86%, the tax impact to residents is north of 14%. That's LIPA shifting its burden from themselves over to the community. I'll never be one of those business officials that tells you for 2 cups of coffee or 1 sandwich a day you can pay for this budget, because everyone lives in different houses with different values and different economics. So what I do is I like to put 5 different assessed values out there so you can tell which one you are which you are closer to. So the 12.5 and the 8,000, that would be some of your bigger Belterre homes. Your $5,000 assessed value, that would be Jefferson Landing. Your 2,500 would be the President Streets and the Tree Streets, and 1,800 would be some of your smaller historic homes. So looking at this, you can see on the smallest level, your tax increase could be $200, but if you were in Jefferson Landing, your tax increase could be $700 on school taxes alone. But we just want to make that transparent to all, that it's not a one-size-fits-all community. Contingency. So if the budget does not pass by a 50% margin, the board has 2 options. 1, they can go straight to contingency, or 2, they can put up a new budget. It could be the same numbers, it could be changed numbers. And if that new budget also fails, you go automatically contingency. And there's restrictions under contingency. So the tax levy can increase from what cannot exceed what it was the prior year. The administrative component as a percentage can't exceed the prior years. You can't purchase new equipment. No public use of the school buildings if we incur a cost. No non-essential maintenance. No capital expenditures unless it's an emergency. No consultant services for things like PR. So what would that look like for us? So if we went to contingency, we would have to cut 270,000 in equipment, 73,000 in PR services, the $1 million in capital projects, and not even consider the capital reserve proposition. And so that would reduce the levy by about $600,000. All right, that was the doom and gloom. Here's the happy part, the budget vote. So it's May 20th, same place, same bad time, Earl Van der Meulen High School cafeteria. The requirements are you have to be a citizen, 18 years or older, a resident of Port Jefferson School District for 30 days prior to the vote. And we have our two propositions, the general fund budget, use of the capital reserve, and for the trustee, we have 3 people running. We have Randy DeWitt, Ellen Bohm, and Jenny Burgess, sorry. Any questions?
Did you indicate somewhere in here your reserve balance?
That is on other presentations that are online.
But not in this?
Not in this. This is for quicker purposes.
You knew I was going to ask that, though, because I asked it last year, too.
Okay. No, and it may very well be on the board one. We have to pare these
Do you
down
know
for
it
the
off
public
the
presentations.
top of your head?
Not off the top of my head. Actually, I had a big conversation with Mr. Nichols about it just last week and prepared those up-to-date numbers.
I'm not sure who that is, but
I want to say it's probably down to about 21 million.
21 after the 5.1?
Yeah. Yep.
And what type
The
of
majority of
reserves
that
are
is in restricted reserves.
which
so-
are
so-
for,
So that's in workers' compensation and unemployment.
and how often have you used those two reserves for those two? And it,
Well, workers' comp we do use from time to time. So we're a self-insured, meaning that if there's an accident, God forbid, we pay for the first $550,000 of cost. And then we have a policy that would pay anything in excess of that. I have had 2 payments like that in the past several years where we've had to draw on the workers' comp. As far as unemployment, thank God we haven't had to use it. But in the case that we do, those insurance, if there is wide-scale staff reductions, that's where that money would come from to pay for the unemployment costs.
so those two reserves, how much remains in capital?
Well, and then the capital, we have about $4.2 million, and we're wanting to use 3.7.
I like that you're using your capital reserve to propose to pay for the HVAC, right? I think that's listening to people, right? But I do wonder, you have 3 reserve funds.
Well, we have more than that, but ones that have significant amounts of money in it, yes. We also have compensated absence, which is funds for staff accumulated sick and vacation time that they're entitled to upon retirement or separation.
Yeah.
So those funds are there if we have, say, someone of 30 years retire.
Yeah, we have that too.
We had a TRS reserve that had a decent amount in it, but we basically reduced it to 0 as part of the CVA settlement. We have a retirement reserve that has ERS, which has a few million in it, but once again, we tapped into that significantly for the CVA payment. We had run up our 4% undesignated reserve to 9% at year end, knowing that the CVA settlement was coming. So that's will be down to about 1.8, 1.7, I'm sorry, it'll be down to about 3.6, 3.5% of where it was. So we're cutting it by 2/3.
But the number, what's the number?
Probably about $1.6 million.
So in this budget, it doesn't consider, next year is really when you anticipate taking out a bond for the CVA settlement, is that correct?
Well, we're waiting to see if any of our advocacy efforts have helped about
Do you
being
want-
able to crack certain reserves.
Sure. So this question does come up a lot, and there are reserve fund plans that are posted online annually. They do not coincide with the reporting timelines of the budget, but they are there annually. The board monitors those reserve funds as well. So as you saw earlier, we did tap into both our undesignated. Your undesignated is the only one that you don't have any restrictions on. You can use that for anything at any point in time. So that's the one that the board knew and said we're going to put most of our money at the end of the year into that, knowing that the CVA was close to settlement at that point. So they made the decision to bring that up, as he said earlier, as Mr. Lester said earlier, to 9%, which is well above what the state allows with 4%. But we took that risk knowing that the CVA was coming. That was an important part, so that the taxpayers didn't have to pay that. So the CVA right now is only an interest only for 1 year. We had to legally give the claimants in this case their settlement. So that had to be paid by March 1st. So we took out the short-term borrowing for the year to make that payment. So what's due next year is exactly what Mr. Lester said. It's only $400,000. You're almost like leasing, right? You're only paying the interest on the payment at the first year. And we did that very specifically because we wanted to see what legislation was moving. There's been a lot of advocacy upstate with Albany, with Rebecca Cassay has been working with us as an assembly person, with Senator Palumbo, in trying to get legislation passed to help school districts like ours who are dealing with CVA payments. So the board was thinking, okay, if you take out a 1-year short term and then decide how do we transfer this to a long-term debt? How do we make that into a bond? And maybe in the next year we'll know what the advocacy efforts are up in Albany, if there is any willing to help anything, see what the interest rates are and make some decisions about that then. There has been a lot of advocacy related to stretching out bond payments for CVA, going from a 15-year loan to a 30-year loan. That's taking some traction up in Albany. Don't love it because you're just spreading it out a little bit longer, but certainly helps in terms of the payment. We estimate in the upcoming school year that potentially in 26-27, you would be looking at about a $1.2 million bond payment annually if it stays the way it is right now with the 15-year payback. So spreading that out might half it, let's just say mathematically, down to $600,000, which would be a lot less. But the board is also exploring what to do about reserves. Your point is well taken. It's been taken by the community members as they come to the microphone with the Board of Education about why can't we use those reserves that we have there to pay. And so the board has been advocating that we use those restricted reserve funds that are governed by New York State that say you cannot use this for anything other than retirement benefits, TRS. So we've been advocating, say, why not? It's there. Why can't we use that funds? And so we're also exploring you can actually collapse them at certain points in time. And there's all laws associated with that. So I think when we get into the next budget cycle, and again, I'm talking a little bit further, after this initial $400,000 payment, I think the board will make some informed decisions about whether or not to use those reserves and whether or not they want to enter into a long-term bond. And time is on our side in that sense. We have the entire budget year to talk about that. We have the entire year to talk to Albany and see where they're at. And I think it's a wise decision from the board to kind of wait a little bit and see. But our goal is to have minimal impact to the residents when we talk about that settlement case. That's always been the board's goal when we talk about CVA.
And you caught my eye when Mr. Lester was talking about the insurance. 1% to 2% of your budget is your insurance increase, is that right? So what is that? That looks like,
Yeah.
so you're, okay, so that's,
Our budget is between.
that's a little more than ours, but the 1% is what.
250 employees total, both full and part-time.
Uh-huh.
So if you're talking about the percentage that takes health insurance.
And retirees as well.
How'd you get that to that?
Our budget is between $7 and $8 million for health insurance.
Yeah, the health insurance.
And how did you, so you said it's typically at what, 14%? Did you say?
No, they normally increase at about 10% a year, the
10%.
rates.
What changed?
We were lucky. I don't.
Who's they?
We are through. So we're actually through NISHIP, which is our state
Yeah.
plan, and I'm not really sure why this year they decided to help local municipalities and keep it low this year. But for
I'm looking
NISHIP,
at-
I know it's like, well, I don't know what you have here, but we were very fortunate, and that was why. I'm surprised, actually, because I did hear of neighboring school districts in other health consortiums whose premiums are going up 10%. So in this case, we're lucky this budget cycle, but who knows as the future goes on. Until December, because there is a mid-year adjustment that also may happen.
Okay.
So then the other one is the liability, and that's a big increase this year. Usually, we're through the New York State reciprocal of insurance. They insure most school districts on Long Island, and they're seeing a lot more claims, both for CVA, unfortunately, but also for natural disasters, which is what we've seen also in the village. And so the premiums for those homeowners, regular insurance premiums, if you've tried to renew your homeowners lately, it's almost impossible in New York. But it's also same for school districts, so that's really going up as well. And that was unanticipated when we started this budget process, and literally last week got that new information about the insurance as well. So certainly challenges in this budget cycle.
Okay, those are all my questions. I bet this person to my left has some questions. Maybe not.
I have a question,
Or to my right.
Sean. In your budget by category, where does the athletic program fall in there?
Well, the majority of the athletic program will fall into salaries. That's where the majority of the money is spent. And then there's some funds in there for transportation, contractual, and supplies.
Okay.
I mean, in the line item budget, which we present online and in the budget is, we do break it out by individual department. And that was in the last budget presentation I gave to the Board of Ed and is online.
So I'm going to ask Mr. Moran to give us a point of order here. Do the board members finish their questions, and then do we open up for public questions, or? Okay, that's what.
I thought everyone was just asking questions. I can't ask that.
As soon as the board finishes asking the questions,
I thought he was talking to everybody. I didn't know. I should wait to ask my question.
just a point of order. So did that answer your question, Stan?
Yes.
Do any of the board members have questions?
I do. So I understand that you've probably been planning for this settlement for quite some time, and so is that how we wound up with a contingency fund that is about half the size of the entire budget? Because we're struggling just to build ours from scratch, not having had one. And, you know, what is the convention for Board of Ed, not Board of Ed, school district contingency funds as a percentage of total budget?
Are you talking about reserves?
Yes.
Okay. So reserves, there is no regulation on the amount, certain reserves can be. There is one on TRS and there is one on the undesignated. As far as the other ones, there's no legal limit. Generally, it's the best practice is 3 to 5 years worth of expense, or if you're aware of an upcoming situation. So being that we are aware, we've been dealing not just with CVA, but with the power plant. We've been trying to plan for that as well, which is why the unemployment reserve is at the size it's at.
And I will give credit to Mr. Lester, who's been with the district for the last 13 years, who also entered into a budget that did not have many reserves at the time, and spent a lot of time creating reserves and funding them with surpluses, knowing what was going to happen in those years ahead, living through that glide path, et cetera. And then the capital reserves, really that's voted on. So every time we want to put money in there, that goes through the Board of Education. It has to be voted on to create it and voted on to use it. But there are certain, like you said, best practices, and they're all audited as well. And the auditors will say, you haven't moved money out of here, you need to move money. And I'm just talking about generalities, right? They'll make those kinds of recommendations, and we will move and we will use expenditures from there. During COVID especially, we actually had to raise the budget for some of the increased expenditures for virtual programs, masks, wipes, et cetera. And the board was able to draw from the reserve funds, increase the budget, and use that for some of those expenditures. So it does happen, and it is worthwhile for districts to have those types of reserve funds, I'm sure, just like it is for you in the village.
And there's a cautionary tale to be had about reserves. Generally, reserves should only be used for one-time items. Once they're used for reoccurring items, and there's no replacement for that revenue, districts go bankrupt. And I will point to places like Sachem, which drew down their reserves to such a level that they started a few years ago. They started a $250 million budget with $19,000 in the bank, and they couldn't operate, and they had whole-scale layoffs. Another use of reserves that people aren't aware of is something that I mentioned in an earlier slide, the tax anticipation note. We don't receive the public funds from the levy. It doesn't start until January. So if you don't have your own funds to draw upon, schools run out of money in October, and they need money for October, November, and December to make payroll and pay vendors. So a lot of them go out on the open market, borrow money, so they incur fees and interest to borrow money for 3 months until the levy money arrives. By having a decent amount of reserves, we self-loan and don't incur those costs.
That doesn't sound like a good idea, to borrow money on your budget.
It's not on your budget, it's on your reserve.
No, yes, I knew that.
Yeah.
But you spend down all your they spend down all their funds and have no money to pay salaries, so they have to take out a loan?
Most districts do, yeah.
It's either a bond anticipation.
It's called the TAN.
A tax anticipation note.
And that's normal operating procedure?
Yes.
School districts, yes.
Wow.
For ones with limited reserves, yes.
And those, just to clarify where those reserves come from,
Year-end surpluses.
surpluses come from,
Either in excess of estimated revenues, or pretty much it's underspending the budget,
underspending,
the expense
The
budget.
expense
Could be
budget.
from anywhere. We spent less on buses, we had less,
Teams that ran because.
and then that just flows right into the capital or into a reserve.
Whatever reserve
fund.
And in many cases, what you see also is it also flows into the next budget cycle. So there are often times where that undesignated, we draw from that to start a little less for the taxpayers.
and
Gotcha.
the board approves that allocation to reserves of the surplus at the end of each year.
So I understand the one-time interest-only payment on the borrowing in an effort to buy some time to see whether there's any movement on advocacy on the settlement. But why would you not use more of the reserves as opposed to borrowing more?
We still could. So the issue is that we still could.
Okay.
So what we had available to us at the end of the year and what the decisions we made for that settlement as it was is where we made that decision from. But now moving forward, as every year ends, we have also decisions to make about where we are. But again, restricted reserves, which ones we're able to actually take from. So we may have more in that undesignated that we can take from when we decide to transfer that debt into long-term debt. So the board will make that decision about how to pay back that 11.4 million, whether it is going into a long-term bond or taking more from reserves to make that payment. So that's the
So
decision.
you're saying that's still a possibility?
Absolutely, it's still a possibility, and
Okay.
that's what the board's working on to make determinations about how do you pay that long-term debt? What's the best way to do it? And again, we can't access some of them. We'd love to access the unemployment reserve or the compensated absences. Right now, with the state of New York, we can't do that. So that's where the board is working on advocacy to say, let us use the money that we have there.
And you may remember last year I was actually sitting in the audience because I wasn't a trustee yet. But please, could we have the numbers of the students with the budgets? Like, who is the population you're serving?
So if you actually look on our last Board of Education presentation and on the website, all of those numbers that you're looking for is there. The enrollment.
Included in a,
I can send it to you directly. It's not a problem, it's on the website. But
Yeah,
what
you
we
said
try
that
to
last
do.
year, actually, but
What we tried to do
didn't.
for the road show is we try to compress it a little bit. You're busy, you have a full agenda.
It's just
I
a
have
line item on the
certainly
budget and FTE
Not a problem,
schedule.
Trustee Urginski, I can send it to you.
Okay, I would just like to see it next year at least on.
It is next to the budget presentation that was presented to the last Board of Education, as well as
Okay,
elementary class.
just attach it then. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Nothing more.
I was going to ask the same questions. I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Stan? Kyle?
Is there access to the website right here?
Yeah.
Can I have the tech department? I'll pull it right up for Trustee Urginski right now.
Do you need a password?
I don't know.
Does he need a password, Stephen?
Website
to access the internet.
Give me a second, I'll take care of his microphone, and then I will take care of that. I just don't want to learn it out. So then
Do
we
you,
have no
did you,
internet.
Sean, did you put in your search engine? Like, open up your search engine and see if you have to put in a password? Yeah. You don't have access, because you see the globe? You see that little globe? You have to,
Trade, yeah. Thank you.
you see the little globe thing on the bottom row? It's next to the sound. Maybe you'll let him go on. Yeah, so you just have to go into the internet, the World Wide Web, that circle on the bottom right.
Yeah, are there any other questions while we're trying to pull that up for trustee?
There may be from the audience.
Sure.
Okay, sure.
Or, before we get there, I do just want to thank the administration for coming and giving this presentation. Just a reminder to the residents of the village that you are not the Department of Education. You are your own school district. So we appreciate you coming here as a partner to making Port Jeff an even better place than it already is. So I very much appreciate you giving up your time and making the Village Board of Trustees part of the roadshow.
You're welcome. So actually, it's a good opportunity for me to show you where things are for the business office. If you go to the top under departments, there's actually the business office. And then if you scroll down, you can actually see every single budget presentation that the Board of Education has done in this 25-26, beginning back in January. And you can actually see the iterations that has gone through from January through the most recent budget hearing. Also in there is something that we started last meeting, which is our projected enrollment. It's right there on the website, projected enrollment presentation. And so this was actually the presentation that was given to the Board of Education about the scheduling process that I summarized for you tonight in the effort to try to keep it timely, but I can certainly share this now. This is described by our Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Neidig, who shared the scheduling process. He talks about what I talked about earlier, and then he actually demonstrates with the enrollment. That's our pre-K through 5 and grades enrollment, including our special education population. So you can see that right now with our average class sizes and our total students. Right now for pre-K, there is a total of enrolled for projected for 25-26 is actually 35 students, which right now is 2 classes. Kindergarten is projected as 51, grade 1 is projected at 43, grade 2 is projected at 51, grade 3 is projected at 45, grade 4 is projected at 51, and grade 5 is projected at 55. Here's our grades 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Cohort in grade 6 is projected at 62, grade 7 is 75, grade 8 is 79, grade 9 is 73, grade 10 is 75, grade 11 is 77, and grade 12 is 84. Glad I was able to grab you that. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Can we go to the?
Please come on up to the,
I got a bunch of them. I need your name and address. Gary Zamek, 119 Wilson Drive, Port Jeff. I'm just sitting in the back, and I really appreciate the school district coming here. I assumed that this was sort of a partnership, but from what I'm listening to, it doesn't seem so much a partnership. Hey, Stan, how many Board of Ed meetings have you been to since you've been elected? 2. Bob, how many Board of Ed meetings?
3 or
3.
4.
Mayor?
since I've been elected?
Yes.
How many have I watched?
No, how many have you been to?
Been to?
Yes.
None.
None.
I've watched many.
Miss you. Zena, how many have you been to?
Kind of busy, Gar.
Same, I watch them
watch
virtually.
them.
Yeah.
So, Kyle?
I went to the special meeting on the CVA briefing,
Okay.
which was
So
very
it just
informative.
seems to me as a village resident that I would like the district and the school sort of to work together. It seems like you're attacking the district. I don't know. I'm not sure why we're all not working together. So you seem to be attacking them, Zena, on fiscal responsibility. Did I get that right tone there?
I'm just asking questions about
I'm
the
asking
reserves.
about the tone. Am I wrong about the tone?
I would argue that Mr. Leister and I have been on a number of calls. Jessica Schmitan has also
Well, again,
been
just as a
involved in
comment
how
from me-
we,
Mayor,
how
may I?
we,
Yes.
you know.
This is a presentation from the school district, so please, while we have them in company, ask your questions of the district. When we have, hold on,
But
let
we
me
do
finish,
work
sir.
together.
When we have public comment, sir,
That would be great. That's
when-
all I wanted.
when
You
we
guys
have
all work
public
together.
comment, you can
That would
address
be
the board.
awesome. Because again, we all voted for you guys, the school, we support the school, we support the village. It just seems that we should be working together, not against one another. Do you have a comment for me, Mayor? It looks like you're looking at me like you want to say something.
I
I'm
I
here.
like talking to
I'm
you.
here.
What do you, what?
I usually like talking to you.
But
too.
we're in the middle of a presentation of
Again,
our
I just
school
can see-
district.
Okay, and thank you again. I appreciate it. Sorry.
More? I thought he had more questions.
Yes.
Rima Potter, 111 Spring Street. So my question is about the staffing, and there were a couple of different things that were mentioned. So in the budget, it looks as though there were 3 people that retired, and then you hired 1 person back?
Correct.
Okay, the psychologist is not really a person?
It is a person, but it is not included in those retirements, if that's what you're asking about.
Okay, because they did, so you added 1 person to the psychologist, but it's a neutral person.
Correct. It was actually added in
Okay.
this school year, but it wasn't reflected in the previous budget presentation because it was done in the summer, shifting that contractual.
Okay, so it seems like we're discussing people as though they're not really people, and we're talking about them as bodies, which for me as an educator is a little offensive because they are an actual person who is providing instruction to other little people who are also people, not bodies. So perhaps maybe you could think of using a different term than bodies to describe an actual educator in the room.
I'm sorry you feel that way, Ms. Potter. That's certainly not the way we look at our employees. I'm
Okay.
actually the one that has to sit down with those employees and have
Oh,
the
no, I know.
conversation
I totally
about the
understand.
fact that they potentially be excess. Those are probably the most difficult things about my job when I sit down with an educator that's educated my child during COVID, and I have to say to them, your job may be eliminated. They're not bodies to me. They are people,
Okay.
and they're people that I care very deeply about. So I want you to know that.
All right, perfect. It just didn't come across that as you were saying it. So if the staffing is staying the same, how are we losing 4.3 people? And the other part of that is, how does losing 2 full staff members not affect the student body?
I'm not sure what you mean by the staffing staying the same, because as that slide
No,
showed,
it's
it was
going
down point. Oh, right.
Right, so it's down 4.3.
Correct.
But then you said it's not going to affect the student body.
Correct.
And where are the 2 full staff members coming from? Because you said that it's not coming from the elementary staff.
So the 2 full bodies, as we've discussed before, are actually coming from pre-K enrollment. So currently, we have 3 sections of pre-K, and we are
Okay.
projecting 2 pre-K sections right now based on enrollment of students that have enrolled with the district. So
Okay.
that's one of the sections. The other section is coming from 6th grade right now. So right now, we have 4 sections of 6th grade. The current 5th grade, because of declining enrollment, is going into only 3 sections. So current 5th grade right now has 3 sections. So when they go to the middle school, that's a reduction of 1 section.
Okay. There's a special ed teacher that retired. Are you hiring back for that special ed teacher, or are you not?
Right at this point, I don't think we are, but we haven't made that final decision yet.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Darcel Weldon, 48 Woodchuck Hollow Court, with Jeff. Okay, I have a question. We are going to be taking out a loan for the, I believe it's $11.4 million for the CVA, for the CVA. Is that correct?
Not this budget cycle, but it is anticipated the following, for
Okay.
26, 27, yes.
Okay, do you have a number of what the interest would be for this district? I know I'm throwing it out at you, so if you don't, it's okay. I'm just curious, what kind of interest it would be over a 15-year loan about?
It all depends upon the market, and the market's been
Right,
swinging.
sure,
We
sure.
were,
Just
and
an
don't quote me on the
estimate,
number, it
I
was about
promise.
3.7% net rate for the 1-year borrowing.
Okay, and what about over a 15-year term?
That is literally month to month. We're hoping to be a little bit cheaper in the 3.4 to 3.2.
Okay.
But literally those numbers fluctuate month to month.
So would I be out of bounds saying that it's going to be approximately, by the time we pay it off, this district, either in the 15 or 30-year window, it's going to be pretty much double with the interest after it go, after we borrow, it'd be, and it amortizes, you're talking about like double?
Well, the interest, that's the pitfall, but what the state's suggesting. They're, in one hand, saying we'll give you the latitude and let it go out to 30 years, but then that's going to double our interest costs.
Right, okay.
But it helps districts, it's trying to help districts not have to pay a big amount each year because
Right.
that cost is inside the cap, meaning it's not an exception. So to make up that cost, something's going to have to be cut
Yes.
to pay for it.
Okay, so here's my next question. I think we've been hearing at a couple of meetings, and we have kind of got a non-answer to this, and I'd like to have a direct answer to this if possible. Not trying to sound rude, but it's kind of like I want to have this information, and it's just been foggy. Cold Spring Harbor had a similar situation. I believe theirs was an $8 million victims allotment of the money. They had reserves, as we have reserves, It says, let me read this. New York state law, the voters, us, may authorize the transfer of all or any part of a reserve fund to any reserve fund established pursuant. So, Cold Spring Harbor had a public referendum, and the community was asked one question. Do you want to take out a loan to pay off this debt for the victims, or do you want to liquidate our reserve funds that we have, and we have a lot of money in some of these funds, and then utilize that money to pay off the victims? If I may, just 1 second, I'm sorry. Me personally, I would personally rather liquidate what we have no interest debt, and then that's it, whatever we have left, and we will have substantial amounts left. We have some nice little nuggets here. And then if we have this rainy day, because as far as I'm concerned, the rainy day is today with this, okay? But if we had a rainy day in the future, then maybe at that point, we could, have a bond, or, I think the community would rally, but that would be a need, not a want. But right now, I feel that this district was not told that this was an option. I think this is, personally for me, my personal opinion, a more intelligent financial option is to use what we have rather than take out something exorbitant like that and then create this interest, which, at the end of the day, we're all paying a lot more for. And we also have the glide path on the way. So we have some financial things we've got to consider down the road. So my direct question, I'm sorry I went off a little bit, was, can we do this? And if so, why hasn't this been presented to this community? Because I think everybody would like to have that option to make that decision of what we're doing.
So first of all, Cold Spring Harbor did not collapse all their reserves. They collapsed their capital reserve.
Right,
And they did that with the statement that the purpose of the capital reserve was no longer needed.
Okay.
So I don't know what the exact nature of it, to replace HVAC or whatever it may be, but they said to the community that those items are no longer needed, and they had a public referendum to collapse that specific reserve.
Can we do that?
Can we do that with our capital reserve?
Yes.
Not at this point, not right now, because we didn't put that up as a second proposition. Can we do that in the future? Absolutely.
Okay, but nobody knew that. Nobody that I know has known that that was even an option of the road, and I think that's really important communication-wise for this community to understand that this was even a possibility rather than just taking out a big loan.
So we haven't taken out a big loan
Right.
yet is the part.
Right.
And the board hasn't made that decision, so that's why there hasn't been communication
Right.
about that yet.
But don't you
because-
think that should have been mentioned?
Do you want me to finish?
Yes,
So,
but-
okay, so what I'm sharing with you is the thought process. If you want to hear the thought process, the why, is that we haven't had to make that decision yet. We had the small borrowing fees that we're using for this year to give us the time to make that decision. And if the board decides, hey, you know what, in that 26-27, we want to dissolve the capital and we want to dissolve other reserve funds because that's what the community wants, then that's what the Board of Education will do. And if we have the authority from the state of New York to collapse certain ones, not just the capital, because we don't have the authority for the others, restricted, then we could do that. And that's what the board's considering. And many board members at many meetings have said, if we can get to those reserves, we agree with you. We don't want to take on the long-term debt, and we haven't taken it on yet. So we haven't communicated that yet because we haven't had to make the final decision.
But I think it should have been communicated. I think that should have been communicated, even though it wasn't something that we were going to do currently. I just think it's important to have that discussion and say this is something that we could also be looking at. And the last meeting, because I watched the last BOE meeting, Molly Mason got up and asked you, can we do what Cold Spring Harbor wants to do? And the answer was, we decided we don't want to do that. That was the answer.
Well,
And it's on tape.
And I just said the same thing. This budget does not include that as a proposition. It includes a different proposition for heating and cooling. So yes, the board did not decide to use a second proposition for what you described because we weren't paying that bill right now. So it noted. I appreciate your feedback, and it's noted.
Can I say something?
Sure.
But saying we don't want to do that is different than what you just said. We don't want to do that is a non-answer to someone asking you, can we do what Cold Spring Harbor did? She asked you pointedly, it's right on tape for the last meeting, and the answer was, we don't want to do that. So that's not the same thing as being told to me right now. So what I'm saying is that if we are doing any kind of BOE meetings, you know, and people want to ask a question, you give them 3 minutes and it's bing, bing, you're out, you know. But the important thing is, people want to know not only what's going on today, what can we do in the future? What can we plan for? What can we plan for our household budgets ourselves? This would have helped if we would have known, yes, you could take a vote, and maybe that would be an option in the future if we can do that, and we're going to discuss. But that was never told to anybody. Nobody knew this, and that's what my point is.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay.
Gail Sternberg.
They get 3 minutes.
What? 3
There's no
minutes?
time
No,
limit
she said
here.
there were 3 minutes.
Welcome
There's-
to Port Jeff.
It's okay. We go above the time at 2. I appreciate your feedback. We've had conversations before. It's fine.
I've been kicked off the stage for 3 minutes. Okay, I have a question about the Part B, Proposition Part B for the HVAC, and a couple of people actually asked me to come here and ask about that. It says HVAC, high school, Phase 1. What does Phase 1 mean? Is there a Phase 2?
Right now, the money that's allocated, we cannot do the whole system. We can only do 2 floors.
Okay, that's my question. So how much, because I see in one of the wish lists here you have for future budgets, it's $10,500,000.
That was a prior quote.
It's
That was a
in
prior.
the 2,000, I got it right here. That's what you wanted
Yep.
for that. So are you leading us into this air conditioning HVAC, telling us it's 3.1 and it's only going to, and it's going to be 10 million?
Yeah, not leading you anywhere. The original HVAC quote involved auditorium, gymnasium.
Wasn't
and
that already done? I thought the-
Gymnasium was done a long time ago, and it's in desperate need of replacement.
How about the auditorium?
It shares, they split.
How about the
They
auditorium?
alternate, is what I'm saying.
All right, but
They
you-
both can't
but
do the one.
My point is that you're telling us maybe we can attach the capital fund at some point. You're spending the 3 million that's in there for it, so we can't use that for the settlement. And now you're saying, oh, well, maybe next year it'll be another 3 million, 6 million, all for air conditioning.
It's, excuse me, as I explained earlier, it's not all for air conditioning.
It's for
heating.
too.
Well,
Okay,
then
but
it is.
it's for a system, HVAC.
Yes, it's for
Okay,
heating
it's-
and ventilation, and as I mentioned,
But
you know,
it's not just 3 million. It'll be more.
It'll be more as funds are available, and we're taking care of the second
And
and
if
third floors.
you just told her that as funds get available in the capital reserve, which is where you'll be pulling this money out for the HVAC, am I boring people? All right. It's a village meeting, but you know something? It's also a school meeting. All right. All right. Let me make it short. Let me make it short then.
Just a point of order. We invited the school district here to make a presentation on the budget, which they did. They were, I think they were open to, and everyone sitting in this room has pretty much stood up and taken as much time as they wanted, anytime they wanted to address the board. So I just want to give respect and respect and grace to people who are standing at the podium. Respect and grace.
They don't
And
like.
on this
Respect and grace.
I'm asking a legitimate question, millions of dollars. You have there phase one. There are people that think that's going to air condition, HVAC the high school. It's going to HVAC. Yeah, but.
But
they
it's not a
don't-
conversation between the audience and the persons. It's really addressed, please.
Right, I'm asking
Maintain your questions to the
So, yeah,
representatives of the school
Ms.
district.
Sternberg, yes, it's phase one.
Yeah.
I can give you the exact figures, which is not the same estimate as what you have there from a previous slide, but I will get you that, and I know I have your email as well.
But the money for that would come out of capital reserves, correct?
It could come out of capital reserves, or it could come out of a budget allocation.
This year is coming out of capital reserves.
Correct.
Okay. When you look at the projected high school enrollment, it is still going down. And I've asked you about this for years. It's not getting corrected. It's going down. Fall 2006, 300 kids will be the total enrollment. 6 years after that, 200 kids will be the total enrollment. Is this the time to be giving us a $3 million plus capital improvement in an aging building? And what if you open the doors, the walls of a 100-year-old building and find asbestos? What if there's surprises in there? Is that being accounted for?
Yes, there are contingencies in every capital project for things like that.
But what if it runs over? What if they do find a lot of asbestos? It's
There
very expensive.
There are occasions where capital projects run over and the board has to make decisions about how to pay for them, and there are times they run under. So there are contingencies put in place for those
All right.
situations.
Answer me this. If a school district's high school is dwindling down to 200 children in 6 years, that'll be the total enrollment. Has the school board come up with any answer of either tuitioning out, or how are we going to get more people in there? How low has the school board figured we can go before we discuss options?
Are you asking me or are you asking the school board?
I'm asking you because you are the superintendent, and you are at every school board meeting, you do a lot
Correct.
of speaking.
So
here.
at this point, you saw all those points of pride. I think this community has a large value in having a high school. There is no reason to shut down our high school at this point.
No. At this At this point, no. And I didn't say no. I'm projecting in the future. I said 6 years from now. Now, I did not say close the high school.
You
And I
said
have-
tuition students out, which means close the high school.
At
No.
this time, might I
At
suggest
this
if you
time.
guys are going to have a personal one-on-one discussion, maybe give her your phone number and have it
She
somewhere
has,
else?
she does have it. She does. And I would encourage all of the members of the community to come to the budget hearing, which is on, the budget hearing is on May 13th at the high school at 7 o'clock. So you can ask these questions directly, again, to the Board of Education, or you can ask them directly to me. So I just want to share that on the May 13th. In the high school auditorium is the budget hearing. So yes, you can answer them if you don't want to email me. Sorry for taking up so much of your time, Mayor and trustees.
Thank you. Jessica, can you please explain the reason why we're inviting the school district board members to attend the...
Ladies and gentlemen, can we please just, let's let the meeting happen. The school district, the board is here, the superintendent's office is here for a presentation. Let's get through it. We understand that everyone's antsy to start the village board meeting.
We're
But the
sorry
more
about
we hear
that.
from the audience that we can't hear the board, they're just going to repeat themselves, and I'm sure other people have questions that we'd like to get to as well.
I just want to identify one
Sure.
way in which the school district and the village are working together. We're acknowledging a family in the district and in the village that has donated the land on which the students in Port Jefferson School District play sports, the athletic fields on Brook Road, and that is the Haywood family. So the reason we're inviting the school board there and anyone from the school district who would like to attend is to celebrate this family who has so generously donated land for use by the school district named the Haywoods. And Peter Haywood still lives on Emerson. And the Haywood family also donated Caroline Avenue Parkland to the village. So we have a lot to celebrate on
Yes, we do.
Saturday.
We have a performing group that'll be there on Saturday as well. So thank you for inviting us to that, participate in that. We
Sure.
appreciate it.
All right, let's conclude this presentation.
And again, May 13th, High School Auditorium is the
Mayor, I
budget
thought I
hearing.
saw one or two other hands if there's other questions.
Oh, okay. Are there other questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the hand I saw.
Hi, Mr. Soro.
Drew Sora, 2 Stern Drive. Yeah, I just.
Are you on the Board of Education or a representative of can you identify your affiliation with kind of the Board of Education, just so everybody knows?
Well, I'm a student who is the student representative elected by the student body to serve on the Board of Education.
Perfect.
Not a voting member, but.
Correct.
Yes.
Understood.
I would like to ask, so for Proposition 2, with our HVAC, it's Phase 1, 3.75 million, 3.7 million. Did you say that our HVAC is, for our current heating system, is from the 1930s?
Correct.
Correct. And as I stated earlier, we've probably spent between $165,000 and $200,000 this year alone on making repairs.
Yeah, so as a student who is in these rooms and everything, and it's also correct, I want to correct me if I'm wrong, I'm asking, is there a state mandate going into effect next year that has a classroom heat limit in
Correct.
classrooms?
There's an extreme heat ruling where classrooms have to be evacuated if they go over 88 degrees.
Yeah, our classrooms get very, very hot.
Even in the winter with steam heat, you see the windows open if you pass the high school because the second and third floor are so hot from the steam heat. We have steam leaks, which is wasting and really not efficient.
So, yeah, excuse me. So, coming from someone who is in this school, we are having every single winter, it is extraordinarily hot on the third and second floors.
It is.
And it is quite appalling. And I want to thank you for, yeah, thank you. I want to thank you for, and thank you and the board for putting this into a Phase 1 so it's not such a burden on the residents and everything, and really going where we need it most as students and everything, which is really the second and third floors right now. I have a ton of classes up there, and really it is a major problem. And that'll be 3.7 million. And does that, if we do Phase 1, I'm asking, does that guarantee that we need to continue through the other phases? Or if we just do Phase 1 and other things come up, do we need to complete the auditorium and the gym and all these other parts?
No, so we can do Phase 1 and Phase 2, and they are separate from those other phases. And so, yes, they can exist without it. A couple of years ago, we did the middle school, and that is part of the building, but it functions on its own with the heating and cooling system over there. So, yes, you can.
Thank you so much.
You're
And
welcome.
I invite everyone in this room, please, if you'd like to, especially elected officials, please attend Board of Education meetings. They are really, really great, and they
Drew's
offer
report's
a
fabulous.
ton of information, especially that enrollment information that Dr. Neidig presented at the last meeting. It was really beneficial to hear that, and I'm really grateful that you guys put that together.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Drew.
much.
And I really would encourage you, where I navigated the website, to go through those presentations. Because in addition to the enrollment, there was a lot of questions in the past about reserves. There was a lot of questions in the past about per pupil expenditures. So anytime we were getting those questions from these meetings or others, we've added them to presentations. And again, we've kind of condensed things to keep it timely, but that didn't work tonight. But we certainly want to make sure that all the information is there so you kind of saw where I navigated. Okay?
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, Clerk Pillow.
Thank you, Mayor. Next, we have a public hearing. Therefore, I'm calling for a resolution, please, to open the public hearing and public comment portion of the public hearing regarding a proposed local law amending Chapter 245, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 56, Schedule 8, Stop Intersections of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson, and amending Chapter 245, Section 4, Traffic Control Signals of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson, and amending Schedule 1 of Section 245-49, Schedule 1, Traffic Control Signals of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Just a quick discussion. This is related to an intersection that many of us are very familiar with, Stony Hill Road and High Street. Is that right, Clerk Pearl?
Yes.
Yes. So there have been quite a few roadway incidents that have occurred at that intersection. It is a two-way stop intersection. The two stop signs that are located there now were never voted on and incorporated into our code, which is required whenever you're putting a stop sign up. It has to be publicly heard, and a resolution, and it has to be entered into the code through the Secretary of State of New York. So those two stop signs will become, if the board approves it, actually codified into the code and acknowledged. And then we're also looking at removing the stop signal, the blinking light that is located right now at Liberty Avenue and where it intersects with Willis Old Post Road, that section. And there are now 3 stop signs, all in the code, that are located there. So it's a 3-way stop. There is no need for a blinking light. And so we're talking about that tonight. And then third, we're looking at putting up a blinking light at the intersection of Stony Hill Road and High Street, and in which the High Street direction north to south would be a hard stop red blinking light, and the direction going east to west on Stony Hill Road would be yield yellow blinking light, similar to the blinking light that you see at the intersection of Main Street and East and West Broadway. So it is a 2-way stop and 2-way slowdown, but a hard stop with a light. So that those stop signs seem to be ignored quite often, and the goal is for the blinking light to be a little bit more of a deterrent for people just blowing through that intersection. So that's the description. So do we have a all in favor of opening this public hearing? Maybe I spoke too soon. Okay, I'm sorry. Do we have, okay, all in favor of opening the public hearing?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next is to open the public comment for the public hearing.
Yes, Mayor.
Do we have a motion? Do we need a motion for that?
No, it was incorporated here, Mayor.
Okay. So would anyone like to comment publicly on this matter before the board? Either the board or any board members first? Okay. Ray?
Good evening, Mayor, board members. Ray DeBias, One Village Manor Court, Port Jefferson. I'm also chair of the planning board, as you know. I also spent, when I was working, I retired about a little over a year ago. I was a civil engineer for over 45 years, and I specialized in traffic engineering. So what I want to say is that I'm happy to provide any input you have on any traffic concerns in the village, including traffic signs, traffic signals, pavement markings. New York State and also the federal government have a manual of uniform traffic control devices, and the idea is to put up signs, signals, and markings that are consistent so that people driving anywhere in New York State and actually in the United States see the same types of devices on the roadway. In terms of, I think putting up a flashing signal at Stony Hill and High Street is a good idea. What I would recommend additionally, there's some on the stop signs, beneath the stop signs, there's a little small sign panel that says cross traffic does not stop, which lets the motorist know it's not an always stop. You need to look left and right and get some right of way. Those signs should be larger and consistent with the manual. I can provide some information on sign sizes and things of that nature. In addition, coming down Stony Hill, because of the downgrade, you have the curve, and then you come down the hill pretty fast because of the downgrade. There should be an intersection warning sign before the flashing signal. That's the...
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I think it's there.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's there,
It's. I believe I saw a dangerous intersection sign when I was out there. That
Okay.
should be replaced. That's not a standard sign. The writing is small on it. As you're driving fast, you have not a lot of time to look at it. It's what I'm talking about is the black cross on the sign,
Okay.
Which signifies a four-way intersection. I think that's all I had to say on this. So if you need any help on anything else, I'll be willing to
Appreciate that.
provide that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Barbara Sabatino, 2 Westview Avenue. I too am in favor of having the blinking lights. It is a dangerous intersection. But I do ask that the signpost for High Street, it's just a 2x4 painted white with High Street on it. It's been there for decades, ever since I can remember. But High Street is on the wrong side of the post. So when you're coming down, or when you're driving on High Street, the sign facing you says High Street. So it should be rotated. And I ask that the posts remain, just because it is at least part of my history, if not Port Jefferson. Thank you.
You don't think that's going to screw people up?
Well, if it hasn't in the past.
Since they're so used to.
It just might.
Uh-oh, where am I now?
If you guys want to get rid of it, I'll give it a home. So there you go.
Barbara, the reason why those posts were put in is because the kids would steal the sign that said High Street, the regular street sign that said High Street, and I guess it was in their college dorms or whatever. But actually, the way they have it on those poles is the correct way, so that when you're coming down, you can see that the intersection is High Street. So that's why when you're coming down the street, if you notice all down High Street, it's
I'll
it's that
defer
way, yeah.
to Mr. Dubai. Okay.
Because I went by it.
We'll ask him to take a look at that.
Okay, because I went by it the other day just to make sure that my statement is correct. And
It is.
Yeah, it is, okay.
Yeah.
And I never knew that's
But that's why they have
that
the poles
post
there.
was
They don't have the regular street signs, because every time they put a street sign up, it would get stolen.
See, no matter how old you get, you learn something new. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. David?
Good evening, Mayor, trustees. David Mamina, owner and occupant of 1303 Main Street. We have been witness to many accidents on that corner, one of which was a village truck. Luckily, they all made it out okay. Unfortunately, the way that that truck was coming down, my colleagues who were in that corner office were very concerned that that was going to come right into our building. So we've seen many other accidents there. We've shared with Mayor Shepro and the village, so I think that a blinking light would be very beneficial at that spot. I've grown up in this area. I grew up in Miller Place. My dad was probably in Port Jeff High School when those pipes were 30 years old. I've known coming down that hill to be careful. I myself have numerous times every morning come down there and had to slow down substantially because the cars coming across were not paying attention to the stop sign. I know that intersection, and most people who know that intersection are pretty nervous coming down it. So I think a blinking light would be very helpful and very appreciated. So thank you.
So the rumor on the street, Kathleen Mott, 118 Prospect Street. So the rumor on the street was going to be a regular light, not a blinking light. So a lot of my information was regarding a regular light. So I personally don't think that they should have the blinking light. The gentleman here was saying about the traffic to your left or to your right has the right of way. It doesn't even work down at the harbor. the people who stop at the traffic light, at the red light with the stop sign, they just think they have to stop and they go. They don't realize that us coming down Main Street, making a left or a right, still have the right of way. So I personally don't feel that there should be a light. I don't know how many accidents have been on that intersection. Now, the gentleman or lady who was coming along High Street and slammed into the village truck, they were moving. Why can't we put like rumble strips on, you do it on West Broadway, or East Broadway rather, you have the rumble strips. So I don't understand why putting a traffic light is gonna help. Maybe the village needs to trim also so we can see up the hill to see if a car is coming. Also, do you know how much money it's gonna cost for that traffic light?
I think the estimate was something like $13,000 or $14,000.
Oh, okay, because from what I understand, what the cost could be for a traffic light, a modern signal can cost $80,000 to $100,000, plus your yearly fee for electric. So I personally feel, why not try to do the minimal as possible? I mean, how many traffic accidents have been at that intersection in the last 3 years? At where? Where, what top of what hill?
Okay. I'm gonna need your.
Ma'am, can you address your comments to the board and not the public?
All right, well, he was talking to me.
Next sentence is going to be, please let the speaker speak.
Thank you. So, all right, so I just don't feel it should be necessary. Like I said, if you go to the New York State Department of Transportation, they're going to want to know how many accidents in the last 3 years. All right? Now, regarding the traffic light at Old Post and Liberty, if I remember correctly, you put the stop sign going up Liberty towards the high school because you were concerned about kids going to school. That's why you wanted the stop sign, if I remember, a couple years ago. When you put this, okay, so when you were going up Liberty Avenue to the high school, there was no stop sign.
Right.
Okay, you required a stop sign because you were concerned for the children
You're
crossing.
talking you in general,
Well,
or?
the board or the village, whoever put the stop sign up.
Okay.
So you were concerned. Now, my concern is coming from Dark Hollow Road, coming around and going up to the top of the hill. They may not see that stop sign, and they're going to blow the stop sign. So to me, I think you should keep that stop sign, that blinking light at the top of Liberty, for protection for these children who are walking, to school or from school.
I'm not sure that light is working right now. But
I
you're just talking
thought
about it
was.
as like a
I'm just
prop?
saying I'm just saying because you want to remove the light.
Yeah.
But the thing is, your concern was the safety for the children, so you put in an extra stop sign for those going up Liberty Avenue. So to me, you're concerned about the children, so why don't you leave the flashing light for these children who are walking up there? Because you can't even go on High Street to Stony Hill Road without slamming into somebody. And that guy or woman had hundreds of feet to see a stop sign, and they went right through it. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you.
Chuck Brock, 307 Myrtle Avenue. I'm opposed to putting the traffic signal on High Street and Stony Hill Road. People in Suffolk County treat these blinking lights like yield signs, and they blow right through yield signs every day. It's a waste of time. If you're really concerned, put up a four-way stop, and that's gonna have a much better impact. But I have an even better idea. Make Stony Hill Road one way up. Because you have a very dangerous intersection at Mather Hospital where people blow the yield sign on a daily basis so they can race down Stony Hill Road because they don't want to wait at the traffic light at North Country and Main Street. And that's a big issue. You cure all the problems, making Stony Hill Road one way eastbound. But I don't think a blinking light with the red light, people blow through those things like they're not even there. Big stop signs work much better.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay. What's next?
Mayor, next we have a resolution to close the public comment portion of the public hearing regarding a proposed local law amending Chapter 245, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 56, Schedule 8, Stop Intersections of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson, and amending Chapter 245, Section 4, Traffic Control Signals of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson, and amending Schedule 1 of Section 245-49, Schedule 1, Traffic Control Signals of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we have a resolution to close the public hearing regarding a proposed local law amending Chapter 245, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 56, Schedule 8, Stop Intersections of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson, and amending Chapter 245, Section 4, Traffic Control Signals of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson, and amending Schedule 1 of Section 245-49, Schedule 1, Traffic Control Signals of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is a resolution adopting the proposed local laws attached, amending Chapter 245, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 56, Schedule 8, Stop Intersections of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson, and amending Chapter 245, Section 4, Traffic Control Signals of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson, and amending Schedule 1 of Section 245-49, Schedule 1, Traffic Control Signals of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson. May I have a motion?
Motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes. I like your idea, Chuck. I don't know, if it makes sense, I mean, maybe we should, in the future, have somebody look into that, into making it a one-way street. I think that's a good idea. I think it's a good suggestion. As far as the blinking light, I think it just draws attention more to a stop sign that's there. So, you know, I would be in favor of putting the blinking light in, but I want to look into the feasibility of making that a one-way street.
And it's been looked at, since I've been on the board, I've been told that we could not do a four-way stop there because of the gradient
Correct.
of Stony Hill.
Correct.
Which I live on High Street. I would love if there could be a four-way stop there, because I
believe there was at one time.
The downhill is too difficult to grade, I'm told, to allow for. They don't allow for a stop sign on that type of hill, especially due to winter conditions and icy conditions, that kind of thing. Trustee Urinsky, you have any feedback?
No.
Okay. Trustee Laux? So, I am grateful for Mr. Tobias's offer to help the village with traffic studies and information as a chair of the planning board and as a former professional engineer, civil engineer, whose expertise is on traffic engineering. So
Experience matters.
it does. I'd love to hear his response to some of the statements that were made during the public comment. I think that, from my perspective, I've seen enough and I've heard enough to warrant that this light would be helpful, more than nothing, more than doing nothing. And I heard everyone's comments here, and I respect the fact that you stood up and spoke about it and expressed your opinion. I sort of felt differently about the Liberty Avenue stop sign going west. Felt that might have been sort of a treacherous kind of situation, but it turned out that it is not, in terms of the steepness of the street, but it also does create a lot of backlog on that roadway during pickup and drop-off time at the school district, anecdotally speaking. And anecdotally speaking, anecdotally speaking, I would love not to see one more accident at that intersection. I saw what happened to that village truck. And by the grace of God, you know, that those kids who were working for the village through no fault of their own got T-boned at 30, 40 miles an hour because somebody wasn't paying attention. Rumble strips going down East Broadway do not slow people down. Maybe the what do you call it? Speed bumps at, speed bumps. Yeah, that's how, like, where'd you come up with that? Maybe the speed bumps, like on Highlands Boulevard would be helpful. But I feel like the traffic engineer has endorsed this in a manner of speaking unofficially. And I've, again, seen what's happened. And I think, from my personal opinion, I'd like to see us try and mitigate this in every way that we can possible. So now, any other comments?
Yeah. I'm not sure if we spend the money for a light and then we do a study on a one-way street. Maybe the one-way street should be prior to the installation of the light. If we take a look at it, can I ask the expert over there for his advice?
No.
He knew I was going to ask him.
I didn't know he could stand up in the middle of a motion.
I wouldn't call
so-
myself an expert, but
I just work here.
In the middle of a motion, that's okay.
here's my personal feeling on doing that one way. I think all those right turns all the traffic that goes down the hill on Stony Hill most of it's gonna end up at Main Street and North Country Road, which already has a problem, particularly when the hospitals get out, of backups all the way back to Belterre Road. It's just gonna add to that. They will either go there or they'll continue on Belterre Road up to Myrtle. It depends on where they're going downtown, and then make a left at Myrtle, which is already, we heard, is an issue already. So I don't know that that's gonna, it's an unconventional intersection because if you're on North Country Road and you're heading west, you've got those two right turns. It's unconventional, but it seems to work. It's unorthodox, but it seems to work where there's side-by-side traffic, and that usually works pretty well.
Good point. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Okay, what's next? Clerk Perillo?
Mayor, next we have the public to address the Board of Trustees.
Okay, public comment.
Hi, my name is John Riley. I live in 109 Rustic Road. Thank you. Today I want to discuss the concept of all public meetings being posted, live streamed, and archived. Mayor, I actually saw this as one of the bullet points in your local ad for your campaign, and I appreciate it. I think it's good practice and the law. My goal this year is to become as informed as possible of what is going on at the golf course. Last fall was a mess, and I don't want to backtrack, I won't. But it was a mess primarily because a lot of the decision-making was going on at meetings that the public was unaware of. At the center of this is the Board of Governors, a board that, Mayor, you resurrected, a board whose members were chosen by election, a board that has more influence than ever. Because according to the newly published handbook, they now have more responsibilities, including maintenance, membership, social events, course projects, staffing, and more. It's also a board which unfortunately has a president that is not a village resident and does not operate in the best interests of the residents. This president unfortunately said publicly at a CCMAC meeting that he absolutely did not want residents to attend his meetings and that he would not post the meeting dates, place, or time. Well, he's doing exactly what he said he would. In fact, I attended one of his meetings last month, the same one that you attended, Mayor and Trustee Gafka. In fact, you posted about it on your monthly report, I think today. I only learned about this meeting through word of mouth at the very last minute. I think we all should be privy to this information, not a select few. And this, unfortunately, is also against the law. I'll paraphrase, but the New York State Open Meetings Law requires that village committees and subcommittees, including boards, must make their meetings open to the public, and the date, time, and place of said meeting must be posted at least 72 hours in advance. I have looked and looked and looked, and I cannot find any announcement of the Board of Governors meetings on the village or golf course website. If I'm mistaken, I'll sit down right now. Please, just shoot me an email of when the next meeting is. I'll peacefully attend and take notes. Any of you who've seen me at any of these meetings know I attend them peacefully, I take notes, I rarely even ask a question. I ask that you, Mayor Shepro, and the Board of Trustees acknowledge tonight that these meetings lawfully should be announced in advance and be made open to the residents of this community. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Good evening, Lou Malerba, 1 Berkshire Court. Just one quick question. Southbound on Belterre Road, there are, I guess the whole length of the road, round, I guess storm sewer covers in the center of southbound lane. Some of them are real deep. Could you guys get the Public Works Department to look at them and maybe get them more level with the pavement so that we can keep our tires? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Matthew Franco, 5 Avon Drive. The last time I was here, I spoke to the board and I represented that there was an issue that I had with the mayor and her conduct. So since that meeting,
Excuse me, 1 second.
I don't know what's next, but if you're going to discuss the incident you spoke of last time, your attorney sent us a letter asking that the mayor not be involved in any of those discussions. So Mayor, if he's going to discuss those incidents, please recuse.
Okay.
Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Since that meeting, additional information has been presented. I have a letter here from the resident that was at the meeting, and I would like to put it on the record. And I'll present it to the board so that the trustees can have all of this information when they make a decision potentially today. On Friday, March 7th, 2025, on or about 4 p.m., this resident met with Mayor Shepro at her request. Trustee Laux was in attendance. The meeting focused on events at the Port Jefferson Country Club. Specifically, we spoke about the proposed changes that were challenged and the overall status of the club. It was fairly light and a general meeting. As I was beginning to leave the meeting, Mayor Shepro stopped me and said, "Hey, John, you know I have something on Matt Franco that I haven't used yet." John responded, "Oh yeah?" As I had no idea what she was talking about. This change in conversation was somewhat abrupt. She continued, Mayor Shepro, "You know I tried that," I apologize. She continued, "You know he tried to get several free rounds of golf for his son and only stopped when he was caught. He tried to pretend his son was an employee of the course." I was somewhat taken aback, as this was news to me, and was not understanding the relevance it had to me or the conversation we had up until this point. I responded, "I don't know about that. I am a rule follower, and if it is true, I have a problem with it." I was very confused, this is John, why the mayor of our community, in her office, at her request, called me in and told me about this, about my friend, an announced candidate for trustee. After Mr. Franco discussed the situation with the Board of Trustees meeting on March 26, Mayor Shepro texted me the very next morning at the early hour of 7:40 a.m., wanting to talk to me. We do not have that type of relationship where we text and talk at that hour. The following day, I expressed to Mayor Shepro that she said what she said at Village Hall and did not wish to get involved any further. She responded, "I've been uncomfortable for months with listening to someone ranting about ethics and transparency. I just wanted you to know what I knew." Now, I also have a text message from the mayor to the resident affirming what she said at this meeting. So I'll provide them also to the board. Now, I have, on multiple occasions, have met with Trustee Laux. He's been very kind in helping me through this process. And during these meetings, he has expressed to me what the mayor said at that meeting, and I've taken contemporaneous notes of these meetings. So, and just to point out, Trustee Laux brought something up to me that I thought was very interesting. The mayor keeps talking about this incident report at this meeting. And I have a copy of the incident report because I've never seen it before until it was provided to me. And when Trustee Laux and I were talking, he said, "Mr. Franco, do you think this incident report was written at the time the incident occurred?" And I said, "Reading the incident report, it looks like it was done from memory." And Trustee Laux told me, "I believe it wasn't written at the time." So then I followed up with the grievance committee at the golf course. And the grievance committee never saw this incident report. This was never presented to them, which is typical procedure. If there was an incident like this, it would go to the grievance committee, and then they would have a meeting, and then I would have an opportunity to answer it. When I look at this incident report, the head pro, Jake Anderson, writes, and it's a very interesting thing. He says, "A follow-up call was made to Mr. Franco, and he agreed with the comments in the incident report." I checked my phone records, and I know I never had a call from Jake Anderson, which then, and I don't want to cast aspersions, but it does look like this was never written at the time it was done. So, and I can't prove it. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence. So I will also provide that to the board. Also, prior to that meeting on the 7th, Trustee Laux and Mayor Shepro had a conversation. And Mayor Shepro said to Trustee Laux, "Is there an incident report about Matt at the golf course?" And Trustee Laux said, "I don't know." And so the mayor asked Trustee Laux to call Jake Anderson, the golf course, and find out if there was an incident report. And Jake Anderson said, yes, there was. This was sometime in March. So then the mayor dispatched Trustee Laux to go and get this incident report for that March 7th meeting. So I feel, my opinion is that the pretense of the meeting had nothing to do with the golf course. It had to do with getting this message out to that resident who is a friend of mine and potentially getting that to me. So I'm going to provide you guys with this information. And I just have one last thing to discuss about this situation, and then, hopefully we can move forward. My attorney received a call from Attorney Moran. And during that conversation, and my attorney paraphrased it for me, he says, "Mr. Moran called in response to a letter sent to the board and Mayor Shepro on April 4th on your behalf. He requested that your request for the ethics investigation be withdrawn, or otherwise, Mayor Shepro, in defending herself, may have to disclose information that may be embarrassing."
If you're going to speak, Matt, you should speak factual. That's not what happened.
Attorney Moran,
it's not what
Attorney Moran,
happened.
when I'm finished, you can speak all that you want. We'll have a discussion about it. I am saying this is what my attorney put in writing. So if it didn't happen, then you can take it up with him. But
I don't have to take it up with him
but
because he won't return my calls.
Well, he wrote it up, so there it is. That to embarrass me rather than I apologize. So you threw me off for a second. In defending herself, or may have to disclose information that might be embarrassing to me, and they would rather avoid discussing potentially embarrassing information. So I'm not concerned about the incident report. I didn't do anything wrong. My son didn't do anything wrong. I have no outstanding balance with the golf course, but I find it disconcerting that the administration, the mayor, and potentially Attorney Moran, allegedly, made this offer to horse trade. You know, me pull my ethics report, and then they won't discuss this incident report. So I'll provide this information to the village so that when you guys, and again, I am again requesting that we send this situation to the ethics board. There's been past precedent on this. This board voted to send one of their own members to the ethics board. So it's not like we haven't done this before. And I think this is a much more serious situation. And let me provide this information. Should I give it to you, Sylvia? Thank you. So, moving on from that, because I'm actually bored of this conversation. Do you want the mayor to come back in?
I don't know what you're going to say next.
I'm not going to say anything about that situation. Sure, why not? Ready? Good. Okay. Back in December, we had a conversation when we were formulating the fee schedule for the golf course. We had a conversation with Trustee Urginski and myself and Treasurer Gafka about a contingency fund. That the best practice was a 7 to 10% reserve fund in case there was a catastrophic failure at the golf course. And we went back and forth, and I had mentioned we could take out a bond, but it was considered that a contingency fund was the best route to go. So now we implemented a $300 assessment on every member at that golf course. And that assessment that money is not being put into a contingency or a capital reserve fund. That money is being used for capital expenditures. So if that was the intent, because that's not what that money was supposed to be purposed for. That money was discussed as a capital reserve or a contingency fund. And now it is being used for operating expenses at the golf course to pay leases and other items. The problem is, if that was the intent, then the residents should have gotten a 40% discount on that money, because then we should have just raised the rates at the course, the appropriate amount, and then the residents would have gotten their discount, which they didn't get because it was couched as a special assessment, which it's not. They're taking that money and they're paying operating expenses at the golf course. So I believe that the residents at the golf course are due a reduction in that. If you're going to use it as operating expenses at the golf course, then we should be entitled to the 40% reduction in that $300 payment for every resident that is a member at that golf course. Secondly, I had come probably a couple months ago and said that the golf course was $700,000 in debt, and I went back and I watched the video, and I saw people shaking their heads and, oh my God, no. And I went to the Board of Governors meeting, and it's interesting, Mr. Riley mentioned that that meeting wasn't posted. And I suspect it wasn't posted because they were going to talk about the financial solvency and health of the golf course. And at that meeting, the mayor was there and Treasurer Gafka was there. Treasurer Gafka said that we were $640 or something thousand in debt at that time. I have the record. I recorded the meeting, Treasurer Gafka, just so you can shake your head. I have it in a recording. Now, I go to the CCMAC meeting. And Treasurer Gafka was there again, and Lisa Perry, the president of the CCMAC, was kind enough to allow us to ask Treasurer Gafka a question. And I did. I asked about the $640,000, and he stated, no, we're $219,000 in debt. So I don't know what kind of accounting procedures we used, but we went from $640,000, and I recorded both meetings because this administration does not consistently say, I don't want to say you mislead, but we're not getting consistent answers out of this administration. So then, after that meeting, now we went from 640 to 219. The mayor posted something on the website saying that the course was $643,000 in debt. Now, this was on the village website. And I just say to myself, can we get consistent and truthful? This is math, right? Math is math. 2 + 2 is 4. We should be able to get consistent numbers across the board. And it seems like the reason we're this far in debt at the course is because of the sand trap project that the mayor and some of these board members voted for that we didn't have the money for. And it's coincidentally that sand trap project was approximately $600. I mean, I don't really have the actual number, but I think around $600,000, and was $640,000 behind. That's taking into consideration that we already cut the 24-25 budget at the golf course, the maintenance budget. We voted on that, I believe, in January, to cut that maintenance budget by $210,000. And we had the general manager resign, which was saving, another between $150,000 and $200,000. So how much money was this course really in debt? And I understand that we use a modified accrual-based accounting system here, but we should really get consistent numbers. If we go to one meeting, a week later, we shouldn't go to another meeting and have a $400,000 difference in the answer. And I just think that we need to be more consistent and more straightforward with the community. And we should definitely address that $300 special assessment that the residents did not receive that 40% discount, because we were told, Trustee Oginski, you and I had a long conversation about this, that money was going to be put in a contingency or capital reserve fund, and it was not done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comments? Okay, public comment section has concluded.
Mayor, now we have comment from trustees, if any trustee would wish to comment.
All right, I'll start. John? You're right. Board of Governors meeting, all the village board meetings should be, or all the village meetings should be open to the public and should be, should be notified, and everybody should have a chance to go into just as everybody can come and speak at this meeting, they should be able to go to any board meeting that's being done under the auspices of the village. So, whatever we can do to enable that.
Just post it. Thank you.
And then, Lou, I see the same thing on Belterre Road. I'm going down, you're going like this. I think the problem is when they redid the road, they didn't bring the manhole. I don't know if it could be corrected now, but I'll talk to DPW and see if there's something.
They're not.
Is it sewer?
Are you done?
Because you have to, you're going into the next lane almost to avoid some of those manhole covers, so I'll bring that up with DPW.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll just second what Trustee Giuliano said and reply to John Riley's comment. I respect John greatly, and I think that, agree that these meetings, and when I saw John Riley there and others there, I thought that somehow it was made public. I was not the person that was making it public, but it will be, and I think Trustee Laux and I have both been advocating for this strongly, and so it's something that I think should be done, 100%. I trust Treasurer Gafka implicitly with his numbers, and when Treasurer Gafka explains numbers to me, I understand them, and he makes them make sense, and everything related to the country club budget is related to the deferral of income, not debt. It's deferred revenue. Deferred revenue, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is trustee comment, but I yield my time if you can add something to correct me. The country club budget has been managed as a deferred revenue budget without acknowledging that the revenue needs to be deferred to the following fiscal year. That's simple accounting practices. It's not 2 + 2, but it is generally accepted accounting principles. So Treasurer Gafka set the record straight when he came in as our treasurer, and it always befuddled the people who were working on the CCMAC and reviewing the finance documents from the country club, because you could never look to see, here's the number, but why can't we spend it? Or here's the number, does this mean it's revenue for this year or next year, or how can we use it? Treasurer Gafka has straightened that out, and as of next year, that those numbers will be very clear, no longer confusing, but he has spent multiple times at different venues explaining that situation, including a CCMAC meeting, including a Board of Governors meeting, and I believe even including an Erosion Commission meeting. He might have explained that. So he's been very generous with his time, and I appreciate that. And I think the whole board appreciates his presence at these meetings. He's probably even discussed it at Budget and Finance Committee meetings. This deferred income issue is not insignificant. It is important to be able to balance your budget and spend money in the right fiscal year. So we're grateful to Treasurer Gafka, and I think those are all my comments.
I guess I'll just follow on that since I'm about to address the same topic. So, look, there is a lot of confusion out on Facebook or even just what are the numbers, what were the numbers. You know, there was a lot of work done when we thought we were coming into to a budget year with a fiscal balance of in excess of $1.2 million, okay? Part of the capital audit that was done uncovered the fact that with some of the funds, that was actually not the case once the accounting was done. On top of that, you have the situation that the mayor just referenced, which was at some point in the last 10 years, somebody made a decision to start spending next year's money this year, okay? So we had to correct that. And it feels to me as if it might make sense for Stan and myself and Treasurer Gafka just to put together a very small bridge, a bridge meaning this is what it used to look like, and this is what it looked like after the corrections, and now this is what we've budgeted for, right? And I'd like to actually, use that to ensure that the assessment is going to the right place, and so that we go check that fact. So I will commit that personally. Is that Stan? Are you with me on this? Great. Because numbers are being thrown around and they're incorrect. So let's just work off one page of numbers that represent history, current, and what we are planning for the future. My only other comment was the clerk mentioned at the beginning of this that we have an open slot for the power plant working group. We actually have two. So let me take this opportunity to say thank you to Ryan Waters for his service on that. The reason he's leaving is he is expecting twins and moving to Mount Sinai, and the requirement is that you are a resident. Now, he does have some relevant expertise, so he has agreed to be a continuing advisor for us, so we're not losing him entirely. The second one is Carolyn Orfino, who is just dealing with some family issues that are taking up too much of her time, and so she has resigned for the board. So there are actually two open slots. So if you have a skill that is relevant to figuring out either New York State grid issues, electrical purchases and how that market works, any kind of history and energy, or even an intense interest in the future of energy, I would encourage anyone who's here or listening at home to please submit your application, because we'd love to have you. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Any other trustees for comment? Okay.
So when do we know when the next Board of Governors meeting is?
Check the website tomorrow.
Okay.
If I'm hearing you guys correctly.
Okay, so now we're on to our action items on the agenda?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay.
Resolution number 43025, resolution approving the attached minutes of the March 26, 2025 and April 9th, 2025 meetings of the Village of Port Jefferson Board of Trustees. May I have a motion?
Motion?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, sorry. We're, sorry, there was an error in the minutes from the March 26th meeting.
That, trustee, that was corrected? And
Did you
so what you see is, what
reprint
you
it?
see, I did, and what you
It's
see.
still wrong, I'm sorry.
Use your microphone.
Forgive me, there's a issue with the minutes. It was resolution 14, right, if I'm remembering correctly?
14 and 15 were the two you had in question. One had a typographical error, so
Yeah.
that was corrected, and the other, you said, was unanimous?
I'm looking at it right now, clerk, I'm sorry. But it says resolution, under resolution 14, it says, motion made by trustee Ugrinsky, motion seconded, trustee Giuliano, all in favor, none opposed. And then there's something else below it with another wrong date. But what happened there was what was mentioned on the sub for resolution 15.
Yes, apologies, that was corrected, so you don't have the corrected version. So, yes, apologies, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, so the one
So
that's
with
printed out
correction.
was not, okay, sorry, you said, I missed you reading, I'm not trying to be combative with
I
you.
understand.
I missed you reading the, however you phrased the resolution, and I just wanted to make sure that that was corrected. And
Which
then
one is it? Can you just read
It's
read that off?
14 on March
On the March
26th.
26th minutes. So we have.
Basically, all the notes for 15 should apply to 14, and then 15's was a unanimous table.
15, motion to table. I think I have the right version.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if you don't. That was distributed, trustee, I'm sorry.
Good eye,
But
Trustee
15
Hill.
was not with all this extra information. It was just okay. We're all
We're on the
agreeing.
same
We're on the
page.
same
Yes,
page.
we're on the
Yes,
same page,
okay.
literally.
To-
Thank you
Okay.
for that, by the way.
So are we all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you.
Again.
Resolution number 2, 43025, resolution authorizing the payment by the Village of Port Jefferson of an additional 10 billable hours for the month of April 2025 to Grants Administrator Lisa Motto for the processing of new grant applications. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 3, 43025, resolution renewing the contract for services between the Village of Port Jefferson and Lisa Motto for the provision of contractor services related to grant research, writing, application, and administration per the contract for services dated May 1st, 2024, and extending to 45 hours the maximum number of billable consultation hours per month. May I have a motion?
Motion with comment?
Wait,
Second with comment?
okay.
Yeah, you comment first.
Okay. Mayor? Yes? All right. You know, I've been sort of observing the hours going up, and I was thinking about, you know, the work that Lisa does, and, you know, I was thinking about, okay, the value that we're getting from this particular person has gleaned $900K for the village so far. Some of that is actually monies that we had been awarded and no one went and got in prior years. So I just wanted to point that out because a good grant writer is money well spent. So I just wanted to clarify that, because typically I'm the one going, wait a minute, why is there more money being
Yeah, I
spent?
got a little nervous.
Yeah.
I'm going to say.
I just wanted to echo that, and I think Lisa's doing a fantastic job, and I commend her for it.
Great, agreed. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution number 4, 43025, resolution approving the proposal of services submitted by Angus Graham for the provision of professional consulting services for the Building and Planning Department, including but not limited to building inspections, plans examination, and building department management and administration. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second, with comment?
Sure, sure.
I just, in reviewing the letter, I know there's a minimum. I'd like to see a maximum too, so that when the contract is written, that there's a cap on it, because we also need to budget for that total amount and have some idea of what that might be. So other than that, I have no objections.
Now that I think I'm out of batteries again. Isn't that weird?
Is it not?
Is it? Oh no. Okay, no. I think we're good. Is there? Or so is? Would there? So I did actually. Now that you bring it up, I do remember thinking that minimum was at least peculiar, but it made sense just
2 hours.
physically. But is 2 hours standard for what they would need? Like, is there a 30-minute job that they're? Okay, I'm good then.
Thank you.
We'll keep this person busy. There's no question about it.
But we do want
Yeah.
a budget for it.
Yeah. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Motion carries.
Resolution number 5, 43025, resolution approving the attached My Shop Club account agreement to supplement Port Jefferson Country Club Pro Shop retail sales with a one-time first-year fee of $1,600 and authorizing Mayor Shepro or her designee to execute the agreement via DocuSign. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 6, 43025, resolution appointing Thomas O'Neill and David Kingsley as alternate election inspectors for the June 17th, 2025 village general election at a pay rate of $18 per hour. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 743025, resolution ratifying the hiring of the following as seasonal part-time tennis instructors effective April 28th, 2025. Jack Maloney at an hourly wage rate of $21 per hour. Christopher Nam at an hourly wage rate of $17 per hour. Tucker Stanton at an hourly wage rate of $16.50 per hour. And Nathaniel Lawler at an hourly wage rate of $17 per hour. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's a lot of tennis.
Yeah.
Resolution number 843025, resolution ratifying the hiring of Max Romer as a seasonal, part-time, outside staff employee at the Port Jefferson Country Club effective April 7th, 2025, and an hourly wage rate of $17 per hour. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 943025, resolution accepting the resignation of Code Enforcement Officer Thomas Kehoe, effective March 26th, 2025. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 1043025, resolution hiring the following as code enforcement officers effective May 1st, 2025, and an hourly wage rate of $19.31 per hour. Kyle Tassone, Salvatore Voda, Evan Foreman, Jonathan Tiskowitz, Richard Reyes, Gregory Hepp, Monique Daniels, Ryan Clay, Emilio Romero, Zach Sapelin, and Michael Ryder. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
I just want to thank Supervisor Cooper and Supervisor Flamia for doing this. This is a lot of hires for any single department, and it's a lot of work interviewing this many people, so I appreciate them really hitting the ground running and staffing up quickly, especially right as we get into the season. So thank you very much.
Agree. Okay. All in favor?
Resolution-
Aye.
We vote? Okay, sorry.
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 Resolution number 1143025, resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2026 modified tentative budget as proposed. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, thank God.
Unceremoniously?
Resolution number 1243025, resolution authorizing Treasurer Gafka to perform attached budget amendment number 80, an interfund transfer within the capital fund to close out certain capital projects by lowering appropriations for the selected capital fund expense line items and raising appropriations for the selected capital fund expense line items. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we just get
What did I
a
say?
plain language
Fee?
description of what?
Sure, happy to do that. Okay, so it is basically taking the corrections that we needed to make to the capital fund items, and also, and also looking at which capital budgets, like the digitization project that was never done, could be appropriated for other capital projects that we have to do. So if it wasn't used, let's apply it to something that has to happen now.
Did that explain it adequately? Do you want Treasurer Gafka to explain it?
No, that works
'Cause-
for me. I just
okay.
think for
English.
people
The peop-
watching,
yes,
like
yeah,
what is
okay, that's a good
capital
question.
project transfer, and
I appreciate
read
you
it, but I
calling
can't
it out.
explain it as well as you
Yeah,
or
no,
the
no.
treasurer can. So
I sometimes lapse into, fiscal speak also, so I appreciate any time somebody wants a clarification.
Okay.
Absolutely happy to
Thank
do
you.
it. Next one too, no problem.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution number 1343025, resolution authorizing Treasurer Gafka to perform attached budget amendment number 84 to account for the receipt of the JCAP 2025 state grant and to raise anticipated revenues for capital line item H3021 state aid village court by $7,397.15 and to raise appropriations for capital line item H1110.205 village court improvement JCAP by $7,397.15. May I have a motion?
Motion with a comment.
Second?
Right. Stephen, so this is money that we've received,
Yes,
right, for the court?
yes.
Okay, and it's paying it back? or?
We receive the money, we spend it. Hopefully, there's nothing left over. If there is, we send that back. But I don't anticipate that happening.
Okay. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 14, 43025, resolution authorizing Treasurer Gafka to perform attached budget transfer number 25, decreasing appropriations for general fund line item A, 3120.12, code enforcement part-time, by $15,000 and increasing appropriations for general fund line item A, 3120.2, code enforcement equipment, by $15,000 to fund the purchase of uniforms for the code enforcement department. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second with comment. This one, in plain English, is us finding some savings in code enforcement and using it to fund the new uniforms for everyone. So not costing anyone an extra dollar.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Resolution number 15, 43025, resolution authorizing Treasurer Gafka to perform attached budget transfer number 26, decreasing appropriations for Country Club Fund, line item CR 7989.409, education license fees, by $8,600 and increasing appropriations for Country Club Fund, line item CR 7989.44, irrigation expenses, by $8,600. May I have a motion?
Second, with the exact same comment as my prior comment.
We're getting uniforms with this money, too?
No, philosophically, we are taking saved money
It's
and
figurative.
applying it.
I get it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 16, 43025, resolution authorizing Treasurer Gafka to perform budget amendment number 85, increasing anticipated revenues for PJCC Fund, line item CR 3889.001, PJCC Golf Assessment, by $20,000 and increasing appropriations for PJCC Fund, line item CR 9950.9, interfund transfer, to transfer additional assessment funds to the capital fund for PJCC capital purchases and projects. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
No comment?
No, I would like to comment, actually. I will comment. All right.
Don't feel obligated.
I actually was planning on mentioning it. Okay, so these are already collected funds that that are being moved over to the capital fund and essentially address some prior comments or are similar or in process for addressing some of the prior comments we heard. But
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Okay.
16, right? Resolution number 17, 43025, resolution authorizing Treasurer Gafka to perform budget amendment number 86, increasing anticipated revenues for capital fund line item H 5031, interfund transfer, by $20,000, and increasing appropriations for capital fund line item H 7197.21, PJCC capital improvement to golf course, by $20,000. May I have a motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 18, 43025, resolution adopting, Mayor, apologies. For resolutions number 18, 19, 20, and 21, we will need a roll call vote because we need a supermajority in order to approve the resolution.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll continue. Resolution number 18, 43025, resolution adopting the attached bond resolution, authorizing the issuance of bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $137,000 to finance the construction of improvements to the sidewalk along Rossner Lane from Barnum Avenue in the area around the village tennis courts. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion with comment.
Second?
All right, so let me ask a question. Stephen, so 137,000, we anticipate receiving a large amount of that back,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
Do we have any idea how much would it be the full amount, or?
We're expecting almost the entire amount to be covered from 2 different Suffolk County grants.
That's right.
And
Thank you.
ARPA? Is
That's
it
a
ARPA?
different project.
The walkways are not ARPA?
These ones are not.
Okay.
So we're borrowing the money so we can get the work done, and then we'll receive the money and use it to pay it back.
Correct.
Thank you.
And that is often the case.
Right.
With grants, yeah.
All
Some
right, so
yes,
this
some
is
no.
a CDBG grant?
Yes, and
Right.
downtown revitalization.
Right. And it's also a Jumpstart grant. Is that correct?
No, Jumpstarts, that's a different project.
Yeah.
This is just downtown revitalization and CDBG for the sidewalks.
So do we have 2 downtown revitalization grants going to the, this is the tennis courts? So we
Right.
have 2 grants paying off this project?
Correct. One of
Right.
them is one of them's part of something we've had for a few years, and then the CDBG portion for handicap accessible
Mhm.
ramps to be part of that,
Mhm.
redoing those sidewalks.
Yeah, so there's 2.
Yes.
Okay. Then, and one we're still waiting to get the executed contract on. The other one we have, correct? Okay. All right, all in favor?
Well, you need a roll call.
Oh, roll call. Okay.
Thank you. Trustee Laux?
Aye.
Trustee Giuliano?
Aye.
Trustee Ugrinsky?
Aye.
Trustee Hill?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution number 19, 43025, resolution adopting the attached bond resolution authorizing the issuance of bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $322,000 to finance the construction of improvements to the Sands Lane culvert. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion again with comment or question, but,
Second?
all right, 322,000. And I realize this needs to be done because this is almost an emergency at this point, but
Yeah.
we're gonna be getting funds back for this?
Yes, we applied to FEMA.
FEMA, okay.
For the August 18th, 19th storm, which this damage relates to.
Great. Thank you.
All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call.
God.
Trustee Laux?
Aye.
Trustee Giuliano?
Aye.
Trustee Ugrinsky?
Aye.
Trustee Hill?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution number 20, 43025, resolution adopting the attached bond resolution authorizing the issuance of bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $316,000 to finance the preparation of preliminary plans and specifications in connection with proposed stormwater mitigation improvements. May I have a motion?
Once again, I'll make the motion with a comment.
Second?
All right, so Stephen, 316,000. Where are we getting that money from?
That's also a FEMA
That's
project.
FEMA as well?
Yes.
That's the hazard mitigation grant
Right.
that we awarded the
Yeah.
contract to McLean.
Right.
Yep.
Mhm.
Good questions, Bob.
Thanks.
Roll call. Trustee Laux?
Aye.
Almost.
No, I wasn't gonna, I'm like, when are you gonna say roll call?
Trustee Giuliano?
Aye.
Trustee Ugrinsky?
Aye.
Trustee Hill?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution number 21, 43025, resolution adopting the attached bond resolution authorizing the issuance of bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $260,000 to finance the construction of improvements to the Centennial Park retaining wall. May I have a motion?
As always, me, with comment.
We need a
Second?
second.
I didn't hear the word motion, sorry. I was waiting.
Sorry, motion. All right, I know Centennial Park, I know the wall, if you look at the wall, it's bowing. Wall needs to be done. 260,000. Where are we getting that money from?
That's also, we've applied to FEMA.
FEMA.
For the August 18th, 19th storm, and that's in process right now.
Okay, I hope FEMA's gonna be funded, but okay, it has to be done.
Roll call. Trustee Laux?
Aye.
Trustee Giuliano?
Aye.
Trustee Ugrinsky?
Aye.
Trustee Hill?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution number 22.
I'm going to ask that we don't even call this resolution or table it, we just skip it for now because it needs some further review. So I would just
Thank you.
not call it.
Thank you. Resolution number 23, 43025, is a resolution to clarify and adjust the language in paragraph 4 of the license agreement between the Village of Port Jefferson and Crest Caterers entitled Hours of Operation, wherein the intent of the parties was not adequately described, in that the intent was to have the turn open to the public. Owing to a Scrivener's error, the term, quote, "for the limited purposes of," unquote, shall be deleted, and a last sentence added to read, quote, "the turn shall be open to the public," end quote. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Mayor, on the motion?
Yes.
I can advise the board that during negotiations of the lease being taken over by the Lessings Group, it was always the intent of all parties, which was bolstered by a supporting letter from Mr. Lessings in furtherance of this resolution this evening. The language as stated, I can understand the public may interpret it a certain way, which is why we're doing this clarification, but at the end of the day, the intent of that statement, where in the hours of operation of the golf course and not in the services that they provide, is more in the sense that if they're getting the benefit of the food and beverage minimums, they must be open to our members during the golf season. That was the intent of that statement. The words, I agree with the words "for the limited purpose of." If you're not in the room negotiating that, you could see how that may be construed as for the limited purposes of serving the members and not the public. Again, not the intent by either party in the drafting of this agreement, so it's just a simple clarification.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What do we need to do now?
Vote.
Vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 24-43025, resolution approving the check register and warrants dated April 25th, 2025, as presented by Treasurer Gafka and as approved by Claims Auditor Goodwin. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution number 25-43025, resolution to enter into executive session at 8:52 p.m. to discuss a contract negotiation and the specific performance of a particular employee. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contract negotiations, okay.
Okay, we'll be back, and we're not voting on anything afterwards, or?
Say that, Mayor?
Okay. All right.
Okay, so as deputy mayor, I'll be running the rest of the meeting in absence of the mayor. So we need a motion to come out of exec.
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think we have a statement.
Discussion. Thank you. A discussion occurred during executive session on the question of the ethics complaint against Mayor Shepro. The board has determined that the most appropriate way this should be handled is to directly file any ethics complaint with the Board of Ethics. The Board of Trustees is comprised of elected officials that are inherently political in nature. To protect the validity of any ethics complaint is why the Board of Trustees should not refer ethics complaints upon request. The Ethics Board is an independent, apolitical entity. Any resident or non-resident can file a complaint, and the Board of Ethics is capable of determining whether a complaint is worth investigating.
Thank you. Any other comments? No. All right, then.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. You get the time?
Yes, it was 9:39.